Chapter 10:13. All of the core members of the 4-9 Immortal sect were present. Aside from Little Huang, all of Enlin's beast pets were present. Xiao Hong, Dabai, Little Na, Little Tian, and Little Gu were all present. Even his disciples, Xiao Zhe and Yiling, were present. Bryce and Little Lang continued to guard the sect. This was the first time Yiling had left the Kingdom of the Nine States and seen the Tai Chu continent. In particular, after seeing so many strange living beings at the wedding, her features paled even further, and she gripped onto Enlin's sleeve to feel a sense of security. Master, why is that carrot running away? Because the carrot has become a spirit. Master, why is that bun flying? Because that bun has become a spirit. Master, why are there so many things here that can become spirits? Sigh. I'll have to start with Pangu's creation of heaven and earth. Enlin explained all of the phenomena that he couldn't explain with a resigned expression, trying his best to fulfill his role as a master. More and more strange living beings arrived, and Yiling's horizons were greatly broadened. The bride and groom also went to a palace to prepare, and the MC was also ready. The MC for this wedding was still Qing Yinghu, who was an extremely professional. Qing Yinghu was completely dumbstruck by 2 incidents of bride kidnapping during the last wedding, and he didn't know what to do. This time, he was going to redeem himself and host this wedding to the best of his abilities. All of the guests had already arrived, and the auspicious day had arrived. Colorful lights lit up the entire sky, and flocks of red-crowned cranes and colorful sparrows flew in the sky while singing joyous tunes. Qing Yinghu stood in the air and announced the identity of the groom in a loud voice. Ignoring the description of his appearance, there were many other aspects of Xiao Chou that he could boast about. Of course, he could also boast about his appearance, such as being able to shake heaven and earth and ward off evil spirits. Soon, the groom made his appearance. Xiao Chou wore a vibrant red robe and a groom's hat, and he made his way toward the location where the ceremony was to take place with an extremely energetic aura emanating from his body. He looked around at all of the living beings around him, and their hearts began to race. My God, he was glaring at them with his nostrils. The clown walked up to the stage. His light bulb-like eyes scanned the surroundings, gleaming with spirit. His sharp gaze contained a natural might, causing people to feel that this monkey was extremely tyrannical. Qing Yinghu calmed himself down and began to announce the identity of the bride. Bai Yao's looks, aptitude, and family background were all things that he could boast about. After all, she could be said to be the most perfect woman in the Fox clan. No matter how much she boasted, it wouldn't be too much. Before long, the bride walked out of the palace. Bai Yao's pristine white wedding dress fluttered in the wind. There was an extremely blissful smile on her beautiful face. She didn't look around. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on the clown not far away, as if the clown was the most worthy scenery in this world. The clown was also looking at her with an ugly smile on his face. Their eyes met, and Bai Yao's heart rate accelerated. Shyly and timidly, she walked gracefully toward the clown, step by step, as if she was walking toward the happiness of her life. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that she would one day marry a clown. She had only been with him for a month, and she was already very satisfied. But the heavens had given her an even greater opportunity. This kind of happiness made tears well up in her eyes, even on such a solemn occasion. She was going to get married, and she was going to marry the person she loved the most. The White Fox tribe was giving her their blessings. The clown's family was also giving her their blessings, and all of the living beings in the creation realm were also giving her their blessings. What a wonderful thing this was. Bai Yao made her way over to the clown like a princess in the prime of her life as she made her way toward her knight. A knight didn't need to be handsome, but he had to be the most gentle and reliable person. The two of them looked into each other's eyes, and both of them smiled in unison. I didn't think that I would get a chance to marry you in this life, Bai Yao said with a passionate expression. I've fantasized about marrying you many times, and I've dreamed about it many times, the clown replied with a smile. Bai Yao pursed her lips in a smile. What a coincidence, me too. Qing Yinghu opened his mouth, only to discover that the bride and groom were chatting among themselves, and his heart sank. I haven't even said the words yet. Is it really okay for you two to be flirting like this? Are we not going to do the vows anymore? Finally, their conversation came to a pause. Qing Inghu immediately took this opportunity to ask questions. It was also at this moment that Bai Ling's brows suddenly furrowed slightly beside Enlin. She spoke in a slow voice. The spatial white fairy has detected abnormal spatial fluctuations. Enemies have arrived. Bai Ling knew about the incident between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, so any mighty figures who had arrived at a time like this could only be enemies. However, the enemies didn't expect the spatial white fairy to possess such terrifying spatial detection abilities. Right at this moment, the clown and Bai Yao both said, "I do." The two of them kissed passionately. Thunderous applause and raucous cheers erupted. And Lin chuckled. Those stupid C***NTS are all late to the wedding. They're hopeless. A cold expression then appeared on his face. However, even so, those who dare to disrupt the clown's wedding cannot be forgiven. A faint smile appeared on Bai Ling's face as she tore open a spatial gate. I'll lead the way. Bai Muyu silently made her way over to Enlin with 5 return to void stage mighty figures beside her. She said, I'm coming as well. It's time for me to settle the score with little Yao. A handsome man with a green tail also made his way over to Enlin's side. A faint smile appeared on his face as he narrowed his eyes. I'm coming as well. A handsome man with a green tail also made his way over to Enlin's side. Ever since the marriage alliance between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, the White Fox tribe and the Green Fox tribe had formed a united front in order to keep the Black Fox tribe at bay. Ever since the marriage alliance between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, the White Fox tribe and the Green Fox tribe had formed a united front to keep the Black Fox tribe at bay. All of the other mighty figures had also noticed this, and they could roughly guess what was going on. However, this had nothing to do with them, so they chose to remain on the sidelines. Yudo hesitated momentarily before making his way over to the spatial gate beside Enlin. Enlin turned to Yudo before extending a respectful salute. Senior Yudo, I owe you a favor. Hee, I'm just itching for a fight, that's all. Yudo waved a hand with a smile. Even though he held the 4-9 Immortal sect in high regard, he was more interested in the celestial court behind the 4-9 Immortal sect. There was no harm in lending a hand here. Thus, Bai Ling disappeared into the spatial gate along with all of the mighty figures. The two newlyweds fell silent as they looked on at the direction Enlin had disappeared. A smile appeared on Xiao Chao's face. Bai Yao, meeting you is a blessing in disguise. However, meeting Enlin and his friends is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to me. A smile also appeared on Bai Yao's face. I'll go with you, Xiao Chou. After all, I'm married to you, so I'm also a member of the 4-9 Immortal sect. The two of them knew what the other was thinking even without exchanging any words. Xiao Chou held tightly on to Bai Yao's hand. All right, let's go together. Thus, the newlyweds, who had just gotten married and hadn't even had a chance to complete the ceremony, fled the wedding venue under the watchful eyes of countless onlookers. That's right, the two of them had fled the wedding venue. Host Qing Inghu. Chapter 1014. At a certain location, 300 kilometers away from Qinghu City, Bai Ling tore open a spatial rift and made her way out. She was tall and slender, and her white dress danced in the wind. Even as she stood silently in mid-air, she was like a beautiful painting. Get out here! Bai Ling gripped the air in the distance, and the space within a radius of 50 kilometers was instantly sealed. Crack! A spatial rift appeared. A series of powerful Spirit Fish clan, living beings, and black foxes began to make their way out from within. Oh, I didn't think that you would be able to detect our presence. One of the Spirit Fish clan powerful beings said with an intrigued expression. Hee, big brother Hong Lin, this woman must have a death wish to stand in our way. Another Crimson Spirit Fish clan powerful being with a vast aura spoke with a smile. Senior Hong Lin, we have to hurry to Qinghu City. We can't waste any more time here. Otherwise, Bai Yao will definitely run away. The extremely handsome Chun then also chimed in. Humph. I don't need your reminder. Hong Lin shot a cold glance at Chun Nan. Chun Nan's body shuddered uncontrollably upon seeing this. Hong Lin turned toward Bai Ling, and his aura as a mighty figure at the return to void pinnacle stage erupted forth. Piss off if you don't want to die, woman. Bai Ling swept her divine sense toward them before replying. 3 return to void final stage mighty figures, 1 black fox, 2 spirit fish clan powerful beings, 8 return to void stage mighty figures, and 80 soul formation stage mighty figures. It looks like everyone's here. Hong Lin's brows furrowed. This woman's divine sense was very powerful. So, she really was a return to void final stage mighty figure? Second uncle, let's not waste any more time. Let's just kill this stupid woman, Lan Xiaoni urged with an extremely impatient expression. Right at this moment, Bai Ling clapped her hands with a faint smile. Everyone's here. Come on out, so we can kill them all at once. Behind her, a group of mighty figures slowly made their way out. Many of the Spirit Fish Clan and Black Fox powerful beings' eyes widened, and even their breathing slowed to a crawl. Holy F***CK. So many powerful beings had suddenly appeared, and Lin couldn't help but laugh when he saw the dumbfounded expression on his enemy's face. He did some mental calculations to find that there were 4 return to void final stage mighty figures on his side. Bai Ling, Bai Muyu, Qing Beichun, and Yu Do. They had 1 more member than their opponent. As for the other return to void stage cultivators, there were more than 10 of them on their side. They didn't have as many divine transformation realm cultivators as the other side, but with all due respect, the divine transformation realm cultivators they had were not even enough for Lan, Brother Chung, and the others to cut them down. Great, so you've already set up an ambush. Hong Lin took a deep breath as his expression turned grave. Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni's faces gradually paled upon seeing this, and their arrogance completely disappeared. They were now as obedient as little kittens. Yudo, this is a family matter of our Fox clan. Why are you getting involved? Are you trying to cause trouble for the Godstone clan? Chun Hao, the #1 leader of the Black Fox clan, shouted angrily. Yudo laughed heartily. The Godstone clan has always been on good terms with the Celestial Court. Now that the little war god of the Celestial Court is in trouble, I naturally have to come and help. Just as they were speaking, Bai Ling silently reinforced the spatial seal. Hong Lin's expression darkened. Are you really going to fight to the death over this? Don't tell me you don't know how terrifying the Spirit Fish clan is? You can't afford to mess with them. Bai Muyu looked at all of the powerful beings before her with a cold voice. As long as the Spirit Fish clan doesn't interfere in this battle, we can agree to release all of you. Qing Beichun's eyes narrowed with a smile. That's right. As long as the Black Fox clan remains, it's time to purge the Fox clan. Do you really think you can win? The crimson humanoid mermaid laughed heartily as he splayed open his hands, upon which 2 long spears appeared in the air. We've already prepared for the worst-case scenario. Our ultimate goal isn't to defeat you. All we have to do is abduct Bai Yao. Do you think you can stop us? Whoosh whoosh. The 2 long spears crashed into Bai Ling's spatial seal with the power to pierce through heaven and earth, upon which an extremely sharp, screeching sound erupted. And Lin's expression darkened. The power of these long spears was very similar to that of the realm-piercing nail, and both of them were extremely fearsome when it came to breaking through spell formations or spatial seals. The sound of something shattering rang out as the long spears flew into the distance. Meanwhile, the crimson humanoid mermaid also instantly disappeared on the spot before landing on the flying spears. That's teleportation. I'm going after him. Bai Ling harumphed coldly. Her spell formation had been broken, and she had been completely enraged. Bai Ling also instantly disappeared on the spot. And Lin was very confident in Bai Ling's actions. As long as Dao integration stage mighty figures didn't appear, no one could defeat Bai Ling, even if the crimson humanoid mermaid was a return to void final stage mighty figure. Charge! Almost all of the powerful beings sprang into action upon the commencement of the battle. At a time like this, whoever struck first would have the upper hand. All of a sudden, a series of devastating spell techniques were unleashed, and violent energy swept forth, flattening the ground within a radius of several dozen kilometers. Hong Lin of the Spirit Fish Clan spoke in a cold voice. Chen Hao, take Chun Nan and Xiaoni to find Bai Yao. I'll do my best to hold them off. His aura began to climb steadily as he spoke, and he soon reached the pinnacle of the return to void stage. Hong Lin's body trembled rapidly as he split into three, each of which possessed power comparable to a return to void final stage mighty figure. All three of them pounced toward Bai Muyu, Qing Beichun, and Yu Do without any hesitation. Chun Hao took advantage of this opportunity to sweep up Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni before charging toward Qing Hu City. Qing Beichun's eyes were still narrowed as a smile appeared on his face. 1 against 3? Who gave you the courage to do that? Boom! A projection of a green fox god over 10,000 feet tall appeared in the air, and its sharp claws were imbued with boundless power of the divine Tao as it slashed toward one of the Hong Lin tribesmen. Hong Lin wielded his 2 swords, and his sword intent surged for over 50 kilometers as he unleashed 2 sword projections that were as dazzling as the sun. The green fox god's claws clashed with Hong Lin's sword projections, and it was as if a mighty fox had slapped a pair of dazzling suns into the air, upon which destructive shockwaves instantly erupted. In the end, the green fox god's claws were still able to vanquish the sword projections and send Hong Lin flying. Even so, Qing Beichun's brows were still furrowed. His full-force attack had only managed to send one of the 3 Hong Lins flying. It was also at this moment that the other 2 Hong Lins had already pounced toward Bai Muyu and Yu Do to restrict their movements with all their might. As long as these returned to void final stage mighty figures were restricted, all of the other mighty figures would be nothing more than trash. Who could stop Chun Hao, who possessed the power of the divine Tao? Clearly not. Ha ha! Piss off! Chun Hao chortled with glee as he flew toward Qing Hu City at an extremely fast speed with Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni in tow. His 8 fox tails danced through the air like agile hands, swatting away all enemies in his path. He was invincible now. Even if a return to void stage mighty figure tried to stop him, they would only be able to stand up to one of his tails. Right at this moment, a white light flashed, and a familiar face appeared before him. Chun Hao's expression shifted before becoming ecstatic. Lin, you're courting death. Chapter 10:15. His plan had already been thwarted by Lin, and now Lin had appeared before Chun Hao again. Chun Hao was ecstatic. Lin had delivered himself to his doorstep to exact revenge. The Celestial Court was behind the 4-9 Immortal Sect. The Spirit Fish Clan was behind the Black Fox. The Spirit Fish Clan was not afraid of the Celestial Court. Die! He chuckled coldly as his 8 tails swept toward Lin at the same time. An extremely powerful power of the divine Tao swept through heaven and earth, sealing off all avenues of retreat for Lin. However, the fairy on his shoulder splayed open its hands, upon which a white light flashed. Boom! The 8 tails clapped together, sending shockwaves surging for over 10 kilometers. Chun Hao's expression shifted drastically as he discovered that he had missed. All of a sudden, a terrifying wave of flames swept toward him from above. He raised his head to discover that Lin had already unleashed a fist upon him. An extremely explosive power came crashing down with the force of an avalanche. Chun Hao didn't have time to withdraw his tails, so he could only use his arms as a shield. Bam! Chun Hao felt as if the bones in his arms were about to be shattered by Lin's fist, and his body plummeted to the ground from the force of the fist. How could this be? How could Lin be so powerful? Chun Hao's expression shifted drastically, and he shook his numb hands. Before he had a chance to do anything, countless bolts of lightning fell from the sky. The bolts of lightning became more and more fearsome as they fell, and Chun Hao had no choice but to use his fox tails as a shield. Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni, who had been under his protection this entire time, were completely stunned into silence by the terrifying bolts of lightning, following a flurry of flashes and explosions. Chun Hao's figure reappeared with white smoke billowing from his swimming tails as he looked up into the sky with a dark expression. Aside from Enlin, there was also a fairy dancing in the air. Aside from that, there was also a gargantuan black dragon circling above the clouds. So you found help? Very well. I'll make sure you understand how ignorant you are of your own abilities for daring to stand in my way. Chun Hao roared as his clothes began to rip apart, and his body rapidly grew larger. Soon, an 8-tailed heavenly fox that was several thousand feet tall appeared in the world. After revealing his true form, Chun Hao exuded a terrifying divine might that made it difficult for all living beings in the surroundings to breathe. The power of corrosion and death proliferated outward, sucking away the life force of all plants within a radius of 10,000 meters. Divine Tao Fox Technique, Space of Bones. Chun Hao clapped his palms together, and heaven and earth suddenly darkened. Countless terrifyingly sharp, jagged white bones appeared in the void, half of which was a cage, the other half a weapon, forming a space of death. It's the space of white bones. This is a domain that can only be created by expending a vast amount of power of the divine Tao. My father is getting serious. Chun Nan's expression shifted drastically. Can this power kill Enlin and the others? Lan Xiaoni asked with a nervous expression. Chun Nan stared at Enlin as a hint of hatred flashed across his face. He is the master of that ugly monkey. He must die here today, or we will all have to worry about his revenge. Lan Xiaoni's eyes lit up. So he's killing them all at once? A smile appeared on Chun Nan's face. That's right, he's killing them all at once. Just as they were speaking, countless jagged white bones flew toward Enlin and Xiao Zhe. These were no ordinary white bones. These were bones of death that were imbued with Chun Hao's power of the divine Tao, and they could easily slice through space and strip away life force. Enlin harumphed coldly and charged directly toward Chun Hao without adopting any defensive techniques. Die! Chun Hao felt like he had been underestimated, and his 8 tails shuddered violently as he unleashed all of his power. The white bones swept toward Enlin in a frenzy before slicing into his body. A searing pain shot through Enlin's body, and his divine body trembled violently as if it were about to be torn apart. His clothes were shredded, and a series of bloody gashes appeared on his skin, but he still continued onward. Chun Hao was given a massive fright by Enlin's indestructible divine body, and for some reason, a sense of danger welled up in his heart. He wanted to retreat, but a thought suddenly occurred to him. He was a return to void final stage immortal beast, but he didn't even dare to take an attack from a soul formation stage cultivator. Ow! The black fox roared with rage as its 8 tails swept toward Enlin. Enlin's petite frame was like a mosquito in the face of a palm in the face of the gigantic tail. He appeared especially tiny and helpless. However, a white light abruptly flashed, and Enlin disappeared on the spot again. The palm was very large, but it was facing a mosquito with superpowers. Spatial skipping again. Chun Hao's expression shifted drastically as he let loose an almighty roar, and the power of the divine Tao erupted from his body to form a protective barrier. Come on, let's see how you break through my power of the divine Tao. White light flashed, and Enlin's body had already landed directly on Chun Hao's back. He silently placed a large bronze ball on Chun Hao's back before retreating in retreat. Prior to retreating, he turned to Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni with an intrigued expression. Both of their hearts shuddered at the sight of Enlin's glare. What a terrifying glare! Chun Hao was slightly taken aback by Enlin's inexplicable attack. What the hell was Enlin trying to do here? Could it be this ball could explode? He immediately tried to move his body, only to find that he was unable to shake the ball off. What the hell is this thing? Even if it's a bomb, it won't be able to break through my protective power of the divine Tao. Chun Hao roared as he twisted his body frantically, only to find that the bronze ball was like sticky candy, and he was completely unable to shake it off. Just as he was about to swat the ball away with his tails, a series of golden chains shot forth from Tina's hands, binding his 8 tails and forcing him to a standstill. It was also at this moment that a terrifying power erupted from the ball. Ah! Boom! Chun Hao let loose a cry of surprise as his legs gave out from under him, and he collapsed to the ground. A smile appeared on Lin's face. I've finally activated the large water ball. That's right, that ball was a world-level immortal tool. The large water ball that had once sealed the Dragon King of the East Sea. Once the great water ball appeared, who could contend against it? Don't underestimate me. Chun Hao resisted the suffocating pressure weighing down on him as he let loose an enraged roar, and his power of the divine Tao soared into the sky before crashing into the ball of water behind him. However, he soon discovered to his despair that he was unable to lift the ball of water with his own power. Black Fox Emperor, I'm here to save you. A clear voice sounded in the distance. A handsome man wielding a long sword flew through the air. A white sword projection pierced through the heavens as it flew toward the large water ball on Chun Hao's back. A hint of hope flashed through Chun Hao's eyes. This Fox Tribe mighty figure was a powerful swordsman, so perhaps he would be able to break this ball of water. Tina didn't say anything in that split second. Instead, she tossed a ball toward the Fox Tribe mighty figure. It was a translucent, pristine, and flawless ball. F***CK off. The Fox Tribe mighty figure reacted extremely quickly as he slashed his sword through the air. Whoosh! The ball was sliced in half. No, rather than being sliced in half, it would be more accurate to say that it split in half on its own, thereby allowing it to evade most of the Fox Tribe mighty figure's sword strike. A colorful light erupted from within the ball before enshrouding the Fox Tribe mighty figure. The Fox Tribe mighty figure only had a chance to let loose a wail of anguish before his body was sucked into the strange little ball. The two halves of the ball combined again before flying obediently to Tina's side before flying around in circles happily. Chun Hao, Chun Nan, and Lan Xiaoni all drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. A mighty return to void initial stage mighty figure had been insta-killed by a ball. What kind of terrifying tool was this? Never would Chun Hao have thought that his Black Fox Tribe would be suppressed by 2 balls. What sort of despair was this? What sort of mental breakdown was this? Chapter 10:16. Tina put away the little ball with an elated expression. This little ball was the first special artifact that had been created in the divine mirror world. It was known as the poke ball, and it could suck living beings of lower cultivation bases than the user into the ball. This was the first time that Tina had used this artifact in battle, and it was quite effective. She licked her lips as she listened to the despairing cries of the Fox Tribe mighty figures within the pokeball. She decided to have some fun with this artifact when she had some spare time. And Lin flew toward Chun Hao atop his black brick in an attempt to engage in an in-depth conversation. To his surprise, Chun Hao's resistance was far more intense than he had imagined. The power of the divine Tao soared into the sky and surged through the air. The divine Tao, Fox technique, space of white bones, was still being activated. Countless white bones flew toward Lin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe again. All Xiao Zhe could do now was serve as Chun Hao's punching bag and continue to expend his energy. I underestimated you. You're even more powerful than the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, Ao Meng. And Lin pulled out his long sword to defend against Chun Hao's attacks. Chun Hao was already at the end of his tether, so there was no need for him to take the risk and defend against the white bones. However, what he didn't expect was for Chun Hao to swallow Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni, just as Lin was rooted to the spot. Go, I'll hold him off. Chun Hao roared as he opened his mouth to expel something. Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni flew out of Chun Hao's mouth before being propelled out of the white bone space by a powerful force. And Lin was just about to do something when countless white bones enshrouded his body again. Don't even think about chasing them. Your opponent is me. Chun Hao unleashed his white bones toward Lin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe at the same time, giving them no chance to escape. It was quite clear that Chun Hao knew that he wouldn't be able to get away, so he decided to protect the 2 of them first. And Lin wasn't going to let them off the hook. His storage ring flashed, and 2 silvery white figures appeared. Gundam 3 Yao Ji, kill those two. Whoosh whoosh. Gundam 3 and Yao Ji immediately flew toward Chun Nan as quickly as they could after receiving their instructions. Chun Hao was given a huge fright when he saw this. He didn't think that Enlin would still have a trump card up his sleeve, and he immediately unleashed his power to stop Gundam 3 and Yao Ji. A series of jagged white bones materialized from the divine Dao, surged toward Gundam 3 and Yao Ji with the power of death. Due to overexerting his strength, Chun Hao's stamina was exhausted. The weight of the ball slowly bent his spine. Accompanied by the sound of flesh and blood moving, he was instantly severely injured. What was most infuriating was that half of Gundam 3's body was paralyzed by his white bones, but Yao Ji was insanely agile. Not only was her calculation and evasive abilities exceptional, but she had even mastered spatial skipping. Was spatial jump so cheap these days? He can even control puppets? In any case, Yao Ji was able to evade all of Chun Hao's attacks with her agile movement techniques before finding an opening to unleash two cannon blasts upon the fleeing Lan Xiaoni and Chun Nan. Boom! The light cannon pierced through the void and arrived in an instant. No! Chun Hao Bei shouted angrily, but there was nothing he could do. Lan Xiaoni positioned herself in front of Chun Nan without any hesitation before activating the protective magic tool that she had obtained from one of her seniors. A precious bead transformed into a blue ball that enshrouded her and Chun Nan within. Her cultivation base was only at the soul formation pinnacle stage, but with all of her trump cards, she would be able to hold her own for a short period of time, even if she encountered a weak return to Void Stage Mighty Figure. However, she had underestimated Yao Ji's power. Yao Ji was not some weak return to Void Stage Mighty Figure. Her combat prowess was comparable to a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to Void Intermediate Stage. Just this cannon blast alone was not something that a normal return to Void Stage Mighty Figure could defend against. Energy exploded forth, and the light of the explosion engulfed the entire sky. Lan Xiaoni and Chun Nan's blood-curdling cries erupted. Enlin defended himself as he looked toward the direction of the explosion with anticipation in his eyes. The light gradually dissipated, and the two figures that were still fleeing into the distance appeared in his field of vision. Enlin was quite disappointed, but Chun Hao's eyes lit up again as a joyful smile appeared on his face. Yao Ji still wanted to land the killing blow, but Chun Hao was not going to give it another chance to do so. And Lin knew that the eight-tailed black celestial fox had most likely been forced to use some kind of mystic technique. Otherwise, its aura would not have continued to climb, and it was now able to stand up with a large water ball on its back. A dangerous light flashed through Chun Hao's eyes. And Lin, you've done this. I'm going to kill you today. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face. Hell, what a coincidence. I was thinking the same thing. In order to create a more stable environment for Xiao Chao's sect to develop in, it was naturally best to eliminate this potential threat on the spot. Boom! Right at this moment, an earth-shattering explosion erupted in the distance. Heaven and earth tremored at the same time. An extremely dazzling fireball erupted with boundless light and heat as a mushroom cloud rose into the air, and destructive energy swept through the area within a radius of over 50 kilometers. And Lin looked up at the miniature sun in the distance and fell silent as he sensed the terrifying power imbued by the nuclear fusion. Big Brother Chung. Was he finally going to use his trump card again? The nuclear bomb had become a hydrogen bomb. Hopefully, it wouldn't affect his teammates. The sound of something shattering suddenly erupted from within Chun Hao's storage ring. His expression shifted, and his voice trembled with incredulity. Lu Xing is dead. And Lin blinked with confusion as he recalled the earth-shattering explosion from before. Was Chun Hao's emotional outburst due to the death of a return to Void Stage Mighty Figure? Generally speaking, powerful return to Void Stage Mighty Figures could use their spatial powers to defend against nuclear and hydrogen explosions. However, return to Void Stage Mighty Figures who were new to the Tao of Void and weren't very proficient in it would be a different story, Bam. Another shattering sound erupted. Ah, Gong Sun Ro. Chun Hao's body trembled violently as he was almost forced to his knees by the large water ball again. And Lin wore a sympathetic expression. Another Black Fox tribe powerful being must have fallen, right? The leader of the Black Fox tribe had lost 2 powerful beings in a row, so he was definitely not in a good mood. Meanwhile, in a certain place over 50 kilometers away, boundless white holy flames had formed a sea of flames that incinerated heaven and earth. A 6-tailed immortal fox lay within the flames, completely devoid of vitality. A woman in a jade dress sheathed her sword before stowing away the 6-tailed immortal fox's body in storage ring before swallowing an immortal pill. Her body was riddled with wounds, but there was excitement in her eyes. I've finally slain a rookie return to Void Stage mighty figure. A vibrant smile appeared on her face as she thought to herself that she had finally caught up to Enlin. Enlin could slay a return to Void Stage mighty figure, so she could do the same. Xiaolan, save me. This is a matter of life and death. A sobbing voice sounded from the distance. The woman looked up into the distance to discover a snow soul beast being chased by a powerful mermaid who was running toward them in a frenzy. The woman in a jade dress fell into a daze. This scene really made one reminisce about the past. She thought back to how Enlin would cling to her whenever he was in trouble. Don't worry, little Tian. I'm coming to help you. Su Xiaolan let loose a clear cry as she pulled out her dragon sparrow sword again, which transformed into a flaming bolt of lightning that slashed toward the mermaid mighty figure. Chapter 1017. Xiaoqiu knew what Bai Yao meant by, there's a chance. Go to hell. Lan Xiaoni was enraged. If it weren't for the fact that she was severely wounded, she wouldn't have been beaten by a soul formation initial stage B*TCH. Xiaoqiu and Bai Yao's expressions also shifted slightly at the sight of Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni. At this moment, Xiaoqiu descended from the sky with his dark god flames before stomping heavily onto Chun Nan's body, causing his internal organs to rupture, and he threw up another mouthful of blood. Not far away from Qinghu City, Chun Nan's aura soared explosively again as dark corrosion divine flames surged forth from his body, and he launched a fist toward Xiaoqiu. A massive fist of black flames tore through everything in its path as it pounced toward Xiaoqiu like a vicious ghost. He stared at the oncoming beauty with a scorching light in his eyes as flames burst forth from his hands. Her smooth, fair skin was charred black, and her aura was extremely unstable, clearly indicating that she had been severely wounded. Chun Nan, hurry up and take care of that guy over there. Then come and help me. Lan Xiaoni yelled for help as she defended against Bai Yao's relentless attacks. Boom! Their clothes were all in tatters, making them look like beggars on the side of the road. Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni were both enraged by the sight of the two of them charging toward them instead of running away. A sense of elation welled up in their hearts, as if they had just killed Bai Yao's lover. Just as Chun Nan thought that Xiaoqiu was going to be corroded into nothingness, a burst of even more profound black flames engulfed his dark corrosion divine flames. Boom! He silently put on his Azure Battle Luo mask, and his aura soared to the Soul Formation final stage as he charged fearlessly toward Chun Nan with his silver staff in his hand. Lan Xiaoni was already beginning to consider retreating. She didn't want to continue onward. Don't worry, give me 1 minute. He could immediately tell that Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni had both been wounded. Setting aside Chun Nan, Lan Xiaoni was in an extremely sorry state. Chun Nan's face had been twisted by the silver staff. Lan Xiaoni hurriedly retreated to evade the ice blade. Xiaoqiu remained completely silent throughout this entire process, as if he were a silent but murderous fiend celestial. Little Yao, Lan Xiaoni is a powerful being at the Soul Formation Pinnacle stage, and she also has all types of high-rank tools. Should we retreat for now? Xiaoqiu suggested with a concerned expression. So that's how it is. No wonder Bai Muyu agreed to let you marry her. So you also have a pure Yin-type divine flame. Chun Nan's expression became even more dark and resentful. If Bai Yao and Xiaoqiu were to hole up in the White Fox Imperial Palace and do nothing, then there was really nothing he could do. Little Yao, you pick one first. Xiao Qiu understood Bai Yao's intentions, and he chose to face her with a confident and domineering voice. They had already changed out of their wedding clothes. Such precious clothes cannot be torn in a fight. They still had to consummate their marriage later. I must have you. Bai Yao wore a white dress that accentuated her alluring figure. At this moment, Chen Nan's eyes suddenly lit up. Then, his gaze became passionate. If we barge into the White Fox Imperial Palace with just our strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to return. Ha! Go to hell just like that. I'll take good care of Bai Yao for you. This time, he was unleashing his full power. That's right, they were none other than Lan Xiaoni and Chen Nan, who had successfully escaped from Enlin. Bai Yao shook her head upon hearing this. She used her extremely powerful detection technique to scan Lan Xiaoni's body before speaking with an excited expression. No, Lan Xiaoni is in a very bad state. We have a chance. Xiao Qiao's eyes flashed with golden light as dark divine flames enshrouded his entire body. An extremely powerful burst of cold and destructive flames erupted forth, making him appear as if he were a fiend celestial that had emerged from the darkness as he made his way toward Chen Nan. A black-robed man and a woman with the human body of a mermaid were flying side by side. The two of them slowed down a little as their nerves tensed up. Bam! Xiao Qiu and Bai Yao, Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni. A mere soul formation intermediate stage. Cultivator wants to fight me? My divine flames can corrode all things. So how can they not burn a stinky monkey like you to death? Chen Nan clapped his hands together, upon which flames exploded and completely engulfed Xiao Qiao's body. This time, Bai Yao, Chen Nan was also caught in a dilemma. The dark divine flames enshrouded his entire body like the most resolute armor, and he crashed directly toward Chen Nan's massive flaming fist. Two soul formation stage living beings were forcing their way into the White Fox Palace. What a joke! A white blade of ice flew toward him like a bolt of lightning. A faint smile appeared on Bai Yao's face. Leave Lan Xiaoni to me. The opportunity to avenge me is yours, Xiao Qiu. The silver staff was imbued with unstoppable force as it tore through the air before crashing heavily into Chen Nan's face. A cruel smile appeared on Chen Nan's face as he looked down at Xiao Qiu. I'm going to teach you how foolish it is to provoke me. Xiao Qiu spoke for the first time since the battle began. It's over. Damn it. I'm going to report this to my father when I get back and get him to avenge me. Enlin and the people of the 4-9 Immortal Sect must pay the heaviest price for what they've done today. Bai Yao gritted her teeth with an enraged expression. Oomph. She let loose a pained moan as blood gushed forth from her wounds again. Flames exploded. The gargantuan waves unleashed by Lan Xiaoni suddenly froze over before shattering. The two couples who had been fleeing from each other finally clashed. What? Chen Nan's eyes widened. A silver staff was pressed firmly against Chen Nan's head. What? His body flew through the air for over a kilometer as blood and broken teeth flew through the air. His body tumbled feebly to the ground, and his eyes were still glazed over, clearly having been knocked senseless. Xiao Qiu donned a suit of black crystal armor and appeared to be extremely ferocious. Right before Chen Nan's incredulous eyes, the masked clown knocked aside the flaming fist in an extremely domineering manner. The dark divine flames exploded with extremely terrifying corrosive and melting power, enshrouding Xiao Qiu in all directions before quickly closing in on him. You're still going to capture that B** TCH? Chun Hao isn't here anymore, and the White Fox Imperial Palace is filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even if Second Uncle and the others have drawn out most of their forces, there must still be other mighty figures stationed here. Chen Nim was also enraged, and he unleashed his dark divine flames. The sound of bones shattering erupted. Even though Lan Xiaoni had unleashed her life-saving trump card in this dire situation, she was still severely wounded by Yao Ji's light cannon blast. Chen Nan's expression darkened. Let's set that aside for now. Our top priority now is to capture Bai Yao and bring her to the Sea Heart Palace. My dark divine flames require the power of her frosty yang root to heal, and this is probably our best opportunity to do so. You dare to look down on me? I'm going to teach you what it means to be a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Lan Xiaoni let loose a delicate cry as her fishtail swept through the air, instantly materializing a gargantuan wave that crashed toward the two of them. Ha ha! I was just wondering how I was going to capture Bai Yao, and now she's delivering herself to me. This is a blessing from the heavens. Chun Nan chortled with elation, as if he had been struck by a massive stroke of fortune. He saw another type of black divine flame. This was a type of black flame that was even more profound, purer, and more powerful. Xiao Chao's divine flames completely shattered Chun Nan's sense of superiority. Bai Yao followed up with another attack as she slashed a silvery white saber through the air, leaving a series of lethal trajectories in her wake. Each and every slash was extremely powerful and domineering, and her style was the complete opposite of her usual seductive self. Chapter 1018. Lan Xiaoni's eyes widened with incredulity at the sight of Chun Nan's defeat. She was the one who had been severely wounded. She was waiting for Chun Nan to help her, but Chun Nan had been defeated first. Chun Nan had told her to wait for a minute. Now that a minute had passed, Chun Nan had finally been knocked to the ground by Xiao Chou. F*CK. How the F*CK was he supposed to fight? Why was there such a huge disparity between these two men? Xiaoni, save me. Chun Nan screamed for help with all his might. Xiao Chou immediately swung his silver staff toward Chun Nan. Right at this moment, a streak of blue light hurtled toward Xiao Chou at an extremely fast speed. The blue streak of light was imbued with extremely powerful power, and if Xiao Chou insisted on swinging it toward Chun Nan, his own life would most likely be in peril. Xiao Chou had no intention of trading his life for Chun Nan's. His life was far more valuable than Chun Nan's. He immediately drew his silver staff as a shield. Boom! A violent explosion erupted, and Xiao Chou was knocked flying by the streak of blue light. He focused his gaze to discover that it was a semi-transparent blue fish. The small fish shook its tail and tore through the air again. It was as fast as a bolt of blue lightning, and it carried with it a powerful force as it charged toward the clown. Xiao Chou didn't dare to underestimate the little blue fish. The power that the little fish unleashed was even greater than Chun Nan's. It was quite clear that this was another of Lan Xiaoni's pay-to-win trump cards. Run, Chun Nan, little spirit fish, and I will hold them off. Lan Xiaoni yelled with tears in her eyes. All right. Without the slightest hesitation, Chun Nan crawled up from the ground with great difficulty and used all his strength to fly away on a cloud, fleeing into the distance. Xiao Chou took a deep look at the wounded mermaid to discover that she was crying. She began to laugh as she wept. The severely wounded Lan Xiaoni had been forced into a dire situation by Bai Yao. The emotional Xiao Chou could empathize with Lan Xiaoni. Lan Xiaoni had told Chun Nan to run away first, but she was most likely going to die here. Although this was her own decision, seeing Chun Nan escape so decisively without saying a single word or even taking a second glance at her, it still tore a hole in her heart. She was crying for the separation of life and death, but she was laughing at her own stupidity. The clown could understand, but he could not let this foolish woman go. After all, she and Chun Nan had conspired to take Bai Yao's life, so there was no way Xiao Chou was going to hold back. The clown swung his silver rod and found an opportunity to smash the small blue fish in the head. Rumble! The small blue fish was smashed and suddenly exploded. The blue explosion annihilated everything within a radius of several hundred meters. The clown was sent flying by the explosion and spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he had the black crystal armor and the divine flame to protect him. Otherwise, his soul formation stage body would not have been able to withstand such a terrifying explosion. How dare you injure my Dao companion? You're courting death. Bai Yao flared up with rage upon seeing that Xiao Chou had almost been blasted to death, and her saber intent became even more ferocious as she slashed down toward Lan Xiaoni with all her might. Lan Xiaoni used her water to defend herself, and she retreated over and over again. But as the saying goes, being on guard for too long is bound to fail. Streaks of blood began to appear on her pure white and delicate skin, making her look particularly pathetic. His body had been severely wounded by Yao Ji's light cannon, so there was no way he could defend himself against Bai Yao's ferocious saber strikes. Soon, Lan Xiaoni was beginning to falter. The white saber projection was imbued with extreme sharpness, and it tore through Lan Xiaoni's vital water barrier before striking her slender waist, upon which it was sliced in half with unstoppable force. Just like that, her fishtail and her body were sliced in half. Lan Xiaoni's blue eyes gradually became glazed over as she stared at her severed body with incredulity. Blood gushed forth from her mouth. She turned toward the direction that Chunnan had fled in, but he was already nowhere to be seen. Tears were still flowing down her face, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was this the end? They weren't married yet, and she was going to get married soon. She had finally managed to kidnap the groom, but he was nowhere to be found. Lan Xiaoni silently closed her eyes. She fell into boundless darkness. Bai Yao's snowy white saber slashed down upon Lan Xiaoni again. Boom! A blue barrier suddenly erupted from Lan Xiaoni's body to keep the attack at bay. Bai Yao and Xiao Chao's expressions shifted at the same time. An indescribably terrifying aura burst forth from Lan Xiaoni's body. Lan Xiaoni's life force draining from her body came to an abrupt halt. At the same time, a pair of sea blue eyes appeared in the air, imbuing everyone with a sense of asphyxiation. This was an aura that only a Dao integration stage super mighty figure could possess. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao were struck by a sense of asphyxiation. Thankfully, the eyes were not looking at them. Instead, they were staring silently at Lan Xiaoni. Whoosh! Lan Xiaoni's body was drawn by a powerful force, and the blue barrier enveloped her body as she flew into the sky toward the west before disappearing into the clouds. The sea blue eyes gradually disappeared, and the fearsome pressure abruptly dissipated. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao both heaved sighs of relief in unison. What a pity that both of them got away. Xiao Chou was a little disappointed. A vibrant smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she looked at Xiao Chou. But we completely defeated them. We won this battle, didn't we? Xiao Chou couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Bai Yao's mesmerizing smile. That's right. That was quite a satisfying beating. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao had secured a resounding victory in this battle between husband and wife. In a certain forest outside Qinghu City, white mist flew through the air. Chun Nan was flying toward Black Fox City's headquarters on a cloud. There was no way he could fight. He had sustained such severe injuries, and he would only be throwing his life away if he fought. He couldn't let Lan Xiaoni sacrifice herself for nothing. She was the one who had saved her life. A resentful expression appeared on Chun Nan's face at the thought of Lan Xiaoni's tragic fate. Xiao Chou, Bai Yao, and Lin. He. Do you really think you've won? Lan Xiaoni is an extremely important member of the Spirit Fish clan. Do you really think you'll have a good ending after killing her? I'm really looking forward to seeing the expressions of despair and helplessness on your faces when you're faced with an undefeatable enemy. With this thought in mind, an ugly smile appeared on Chun Nan's crooked face, which had been hammered. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions and booms of energy could still be heard even from so far away. Vital energy surged like massive waves as gale-force winds swept through the air for over 500 kilometers. This was a battle that had never been witnessed in the creation realm in the past 100 years. Even soul formation stage powerful beings would most likely be reduced to cannon fodder. It's a pity, though. Who would have thought that not only would I lose my future concubine, Bai Yao, but even my future wife, Lan Xiaoni? Chun Nin heaved a forlorn sigh. He was feeling a little sad. Boom! A crimson sword projection suddenly swept through the air. It landed directly on Chun Nan's body. PFFF. Chun Nan's body was torn apart by the scorching sword projection, and he threw up a mouthful of blood before plummeting from the sky. A figure appeared before Chun Nan with an expression of surprise and elation on his face. Chun Nan clasped a hand over the wound on his chest, and his eyes widened in shock. Who are you? A man wielding a crimson longsword chortled with elation as he looked at Chun Nan. If you hadn't been talking to yourself, I wouldn't have recognized you. You ugly C***. You're so different from the person in the picture. It's all because of your good looks. The man spoke to himself as he pressed his long sword against Chun Nan's neck. I really am the one chosen by the heavens. The entire course of this battle is in my hands. I'm an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin. Chapter 1019. As an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin had a sense of responsibility and mission, so he naturally participated in the battle as well. However, when he exited the spatial gate with Bai Ling, he discovered that even the weakest enemy was a soul formation stage cultivator. How the F*** were they supposed to fight? Flip the table. They couldn't even defeat the weaklings. One earth-shattering spell technique after another was being unleashed. Tang Shimin chose to observe from the shadows. That's right, this was a strategic retreat. These spell techniques could affect a radius of several kilometers, and they made his heart tremble uncontrollably. Just like that, he retreated further and further, further and further. This was way too terrifying. A bunch of returned to Void Stage mighty figures were battling, and they were able to crush heaven and earth with just a casual spell technique. This is way too terrifying. Is this the world of the powerful? Tang Shimin felt like he was so useless. He had no idea what he was doing here. Even if he was a bystander shouting 666, his teammates wouldn't be able to hear him shouting 666 from so far away. He didn't even have the right to be a cheerleader anymore. How sad was this? Tang Shimin pulled out a pair of binoculars and focused his vital energy into the crystal to observe his teammates' battle. Lin is so bad *SS. He can even kill the leader of the Black Fox tribe. Look at me. Sigh. Tang Shimin's chest constricted. There really was a huge disparity between humans. Holy F***CK. That Dabai killed a soul formation stage mermaid? So bad *SS. Tang Shimin's chest constricted. There really was a huge disparity between humans and dogs. Wait, something didn't seem right. Tears welled up in Tang Shimin's eyes again. I'm just a useless piece of trash. Well, right at this moment, an energy fluctuation suddenly erupted from the distance. Tang Shimin looked up to discover a fox tribe, powerful being flying in the sky. Someone's coming. Is it a deserter? Or is it someone who ran away in fear like me? Tang Shimin's heart jolted with relief. It looked like he wasn't the only useless one. However, he soon realized that he was the most useless one. The expert from the Black Fox clan who was flying in the sky had obviously been injured in the battle, and his injuries were especially serious. His aura was extremely weak, and it was obvious that he was holding on. His face is flattened, his nose is crooked, and his mouth is leaking air. Tang Shimin trailed along silently and overheard the man muttering to himself. Lin, Bai Yao, Lan Xiaoni, holy **T. That ugly bastard, could it be that he was the dream of hundreds of millions of Black Fox girls, the leader of the younger generation, Chun Nan? Tang Shimin's heart jolted with shock. To think that he would encounter such a crucial figure in this war. This person is an expert at the peak of the soul formation stage. My strategy is to retreat. Just as he was about to flee, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Wait, Chun Nan's current condition. For some reason, Tang Shimin's breathing accelerated. His desire to turn over a new leaf was stronger than ever. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tang Shimin decided that he was going to kill Chun Nan. Thus, an earth-shattering crimson streak of light pierced through the clouds and slashed the severely wounded Black Fox clan Cultivator from the sky. Tang Shimin had trampled over the entire battlefield, and he uttered the most domineering words he had ever uttered in his life. I am an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin. Chunnan stared blankly at the ordinary-looking man before him, and he opened his mouth with difficulty. Tangshiman, who are you? Everyone suddenly fell silent. Tangshiman, Chunnan, bam. Chunnan coughed up another mouthful of blood after being struck by the immense force. I was wrong. Please spare me, Big Brother Tang. Chunnan howled with agony. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just an ordinary-looking man. Tears flowed down Tangshiman's face as he continued to stomp down on Chunnan's chest. Bam, bam, bam. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. Chunnan was frothing at the mouth, and his heart was filled with despair. Was he an enemy of the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Why was it that he only encountered cultivators from the 4-9 Immortal Sect and was pummeled by them every time? First, he was pummeled by Lin's mechanical puppet, then he was pummeled by Xiao Cho, and now he was being pummeled by a nut job. Tangshiman finally vented all of the negative emotions in his heart after stomping on her body to his heart's content. Chunnan was extremely enraged. He was a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage and the most dazzling prodigy among the younger generation of the Black Fox clan. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Now, he was being pummeled by a cannon fodder who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage yet. Should I kill you or capture you alive? Tangshiman stroked his chin. Capture me alive. Chunnan's survival instinct forced him to spit out those words with great difficulty. Tangshiman pulled out his long sword with a disdainful expression. Do you have any last words? Chunnan, was this B** star retarded? Can't you understand human language? He didn't even get a chance to say anything before the crimson longsword fell like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Chunnan's face was filled with horror and despair as he looked up at the blood splattering through the air. He looked down at his headless body and fell into an eternal darkness. Never would he have thought that his life would end at the hands of a noob like this. Tangshiman sheathed his sword. I was just asking. Don't take it seriously. He silently pulled out a photographic crystal and took a picture before incinerating Chunnan's body into ashes. His head and other spoils of war were stowed away into his storage ring. This war has finally been ended by me. Tangshiman heaved a faint sigh of contentment. He raised his head and looked at the world-shaking battle in the distance. He was speechless. His gaze was misty and deep, and his entire temperament was different. This was the aura of a victor. He was like a swordsman who had successfully decapitated an enemy boss. He stood with his sword strapped to his back and looked up at the storm clouds in the distance. From this day forth, please refer to him as Tang Hei's Kingshiman, at the place where the battle was the most intense. The eight-tailed celestial fox, the leader of the Black Fox tribe, Chun Hao, was engaged in a fierce battle with Lin and the others. Within the space of white bones, a series of terrifying jagged white bones slashed toward man. And Lin didn't expect Chun Hao to be able to unleash such astonishing combat prowess, even after being suppressed by the large water ball. If it weren't for Tina and Xiao Zhe assisting him, he might have even been defeated. As it turned out, Chun Hao was indeed a lot more bad *SS than the Dragon King of the EC. All of a sudden, the sound of something shattering erupted from within his storage ring. Chun Hao suddenly stopped his attacks and trembled as he inspected his storage ring. From the looks of it, another capable general had fallen, and Lin was not going to let this opportunity slip by, and he immediately slashed his evil-slaying sword through the air, instantly inflicting over 100 wounds on Chun Hao's body. However, Lin felt like something was amiss as the air around him seemed to have congealed. This was a sign that a volcano was about to erupt. Chun Hao suddenly raised his head, and an extremely terrifying aura soared into the clouds. Ah, my son! The eight-tailed celestial fox let loose an enraged roar as his eyes turned crimson and the light in the sky quickly dimmed. An indistinct tail appeared behind the eight-tailed celestial fox. Chapter 10:20. My sons, I'll kill all of you. I'll kill all of you to avenge my son. The eight-tailed heavenly fox's aura became even more terrifying as a semi-transparent ninth tail appeared, from which an extremely terrifying, ferocious, might erupted into the sky. That sorrowful emotion even affected the weather of heaven and earth. The sky quickly dimmed as the sunlight was engulfed by the power of death. In the middle of the 8 huge tails, there was a translucent black tail with a seemingly solid white tailbone. It was ferocious and sharp, making one's heart palpitate, and Lin's heart thumped in his chest. Facing Chun Hao in his current state, he felt as if he were facing the Dark Knight monarch. Bam! A violent boom erupted as the large water ball was knocked flying by the 8-tailed heavenly fox. No, it should be referred to as a 9-tailed heavenly fox or a pseudo-9-tailed heavenly fox. And Lin stowed the large water ball away. Its suppressive effect was already useless against Chun Hao. Why do all my enemies like to self-detonate so much these days? And Lin's lips twitched. Chun Hao's eyes were crimson as he stared intently at Enlin. He clenched his claws tightly, as if he were a ferocious beast preparing to tear apart its prey. The space around him began to tremor involuntarily. Chun Hao's aura became even more vast and ethereal after the 9th tail appeared. He had already reached the pinnacle of the return to void stage, as if he were only a hair's breadth away from the Tao integration stage. And Lin would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. Chun Hao was clearly going to have to pay an extremely heavy price to unleash such a powerful spell technique, but that wasn't what Enlin was concerned about. All he was concerned about was how he was going to survive. His life was extremely precious. Even if Chun Hao were to suddenly die after unleashing this mystic technique, it would still be a huge loss for him. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, Bai Ling and the Crimson Mermaid were engaged in a fierce battle. The Crimson Mermaid had another gaping wound inflicted upon its body by Bai Ling's spatial slicing technique. It hurtled back in retreat, only to find Bai Ling striding through the air toward it before collecting the mermaid's blood into a vial. The mermaid almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon seeing this. His scales, blood, and hair had all been harvested by Bai Ling rather than calling this a battle. It was more accurate to call this a journey of being dissected by Bai Ling for research purposes. Too frightening. This woman is too frightening. A chill ran down the spine of the mermaid's spine at the sight of the mermaid. When had a return to void, final stage, spirit fish, clan mighty figure, ever suffered such humiliation? Right at this moment, a command issued by a certain super mighty figure outside the west of the sea flashed through its mind. Chiavit. It let out a loud roar and began to flee. This place was too scary. He didn't want to stay here a second longer. This spirit was the Bai of the spirit. Ling by King Ling, by spirit, was spirit appeared. They were of spirit. She looked at the blood in the small bottle and smiled with satisfaction. Who cares? It's not like I didn't gain anything from this battle. I've gained quite a lot from this battle. Hong spirit of, see, he of dragon. He moon of spirit. The dragon be god dragon, King Hong. He king all of the other spirit fish clan powerful beings also began to retreat. They didn't seem to be in a very good mood. All of the 4-9 immortal sect and white fox tribe powerful beings were ecstatic to see this. Their enemy's pain was their joy. It was quite clear that their plan had failed, even though they didn't know why. The retreat of the Spirit Fish clan sent the Black Fox tribe into a panic. Their allies had suddenly abandoned them and fled. They were going to be annihilated in the face of such a large group of powerful beings. The Black Fox tribe mighty figures weren't idiots. They knew that they would definitely lose if they continued to fight, so they also began to flee. Thus, their enemies began to suffer a crushing defeat. Let's give them a good beating, woof. Dabai chased after them with elation. On a certain mountain peak over 50 kilometers away, Tang Shimin wore a white robe flapping in the wind, and a sense of pride welled up in his heart as he looked at the fleeing enemies. Right at this moment, an extremely unsettling feeling suddenly engulfed the entire heaven and earth. Howl! A mighty roar erupted in the distance, striking straight into the hearts of all living beings. Bai Ling, Qing Beichun, Bai Muyu, Yu Do, and all the other mighty figures turned toward a certain direction in unison. Heaven and earth, there was a vast expanse of darkness. An inky black sphere extended outward, as if it were an engulfing space that even sunlight was unable to shine into. There seemed to be 9 black tails waving within the darkness. Qing Beichen's expression shifted drastically. 9-tailed divine fox? No. This is a pseudo-9-tailed divine fox that was forcibly transformed by a mystic technique. Even though Bai Muyu had denied Qing Beichen's statement, her expression was still extremely grave instead of lightening up. It was quite clear that even a pseudo-9-tailed divine fox was extremely terrifying to them. Lin is in danger, Bai Ling suddenly said before charging into the inky black sphere domain without any hesitation. All of the other 4-9 immortal sect mighty figures also charged into the domain. Su Qinyun, Dabai, Xiao Hong, and Lu Qianhuan were stopped by Xianyuan Cheng. The enemy is too powerful. Let's not get in their way. Xianyuan Cheng didn't want to admit it, but he was forced to stop in his tracks by the might emanating from the black sphere. Qing Beichen and Yu Dou hesitated momentarily before flying toward the domain unleashed by the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox. In the face of such a fearsome enemy, even returned to void stage mighty figures could easily perish. Xiaolan, should we go? Shui Zhantian looked at the source of the terrifying might emanating from the domain, and he trembled uncontrollably. A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Not for now. If we go there, we'll only make Lin worry. A rookie returned to Void Stage mighty figure, and a cultivator who wasn't even at the return of Void Stage would only be of limited use if they went there. Su Xiaolan looked into the darkness up ahead and spoke in a low voice. I believe that Lin will definitely come back safely. He's not even a Dao integration stage super mighty figure, so there's no way he'll be a problem. Shui Zhantian looked up at Su Xiaolan's flawless features, and he could tell from her confident expression that she was not just trying to comfort herself. She was serious. At this moment, Lin looked up at heaven and earth, and he knew that he couldn't delay any longer. The pseudo-9-tailed divine fox raised his head, and his crimson eyes seemed to be glaring from the depths of hell. His 9 tails turned into the darkest shade of black as he slowly approached Lin and the others. Go, Gundam 3, Yao Ji. Lin immediately issued a command. Gundam 3 spread open its hands, and purple gravitational force erupted forth for several kilometers to suppress the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox. Yao Ji spread open her pink wings and stepped forward, upon which her body disappeared on the spot. In the next instant, she had already appeared before the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox with a pink particle energy sword in her hand. Whoosh, time seemed to have stopped. Gundam 3 and Yao Ji were both frozen in place by an indescribable power, and they were unable to move. Bam! A metallic boom erupted. Yao Ji's chest was punctured by a bone spike that had appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 10:21. Heaven and earth were plunged into darkness. As long as one was in a dark space, the restrictive power was omnipresent. That's right. All of the darkness between heaven and earth was the power of the 9-tailed divine fox. Lin was also affected. He tried to struggle free with all his might, but he was completely immobilized by the power of heaven and earth. He couldn't even move a single finger. This was an absolute suppression of power. He wasn't the only one. Tina and Xiaozo were also sealed. This restrictive power was even more terrifying than a spatial one, as it was omnipresent and untraceable. The entire dark space was filled with the power of the 9-tailed divine fox's divine Dao. Chen Hao swept a paw through the air, and Yao Ji's body twisted before crashing to the ground. It's over. I'm going to kill all of you with my son. Chen Hao roared before waving a hand toward Lin in the distance. Boundless darkness surged toward Lin with the power of heaven and earth, as if it were a demon that was going to devour all living beings. Lin's divine body was struck by an instinctive sense of fear for the first time. It's over. This thought suddenly appeared in his mind. All of a sudden, a white, rhomboid barrier enshrouded Lin within. Rumble, the deepest darkness, crashed violently into the white barrier, and what sounded like the roars of wild beasts erupted. Tears welled up in Lin's eyes as he sensed this familiar spatial power. Big Sister Bai, you're finally here. A beautiful woman with cold features appeared before Lin, and she glanced at Lin out of the corner of her eye with a faint smile on her face. What is it, Lin? This is the first time I've seen you only defend. Are you done? And Lin's lips twitched slightly. How could a man admit that he was done? However, he couldn't be bothered with Bai Ling's teasing as he turned toward the nine-tailed divine fox again. The nine-tailed divine fox let loose an almighty roar upon seeing Bai Ling's appearance. Crack! Under the pressure of the darkness, the white barrier constructed by Bai Ling's spatial power of the divine Tao began to crack open. Bai Ling harumphed coldly before extending a pristine white hand toward the nine-tailed divine fox from afar. Sky-shattering, a thin white line tore through the darkness, piercing through the void of space. This attack, which was imbued with the power of the spatial divine Tao, was the sharpest blade. A disdainful smile appeared on the nine-tailed divine fox's face. The dark tails swung towards the white threads, but the spatial threads cut through the tails like clay oxen entering the sea, disappearing in an instant. Any attack that comes into contact with my tail will be reduced to nothingness. Before he could finish, a huge golden fireball tore through the darkness and descended from the sky. Chun Hao's nine tails quickly retracted to form a giant umbrella above his head. Boom! The fireball collided with the tail, producing a sizzling sound. The dark nine tails were like boiling water, showing signs of evaporation. At the end of the day, the ability to engulf spell techniques was only a matter of how powerful the power of the divine Tao was. There was no power that could engulf all spell techniques. Jiao Wei had just been attacked by Bai Ling's spatial attack, and now she was being attacked by a fireball from the sky, and her expression finally shifted slightly. Right at this moment, the white flying sword imbued with the power of the divine Tao stabbed toward the nine-tailed divine fox's head. Chun Hao didn't even have a chance to do anything before an azure sword projection suddenly appeared from another direction, stabbing toward his *S. Bai Ling, Yu Dou, Qing Beichun, and Bai Muyu. Four return to void final stage mighty figures had attacked almost at the same time. Chun Hao didn't think that it would be so difficult to kill Lin. To think that he would be targeted by four return to void final stage mighty figures. Shadow, manifestation. His body tremored violently, and his massive black body disappeared like smoke and mist before merging into the darkness. Boom! The golden fireball exploded like a bright sun upon crashing into the ground. Qing Beichun and Bai Muyu's attacks missed at the same time. Bai Ling harumphed coldly before disappearing on the spot. Lin's spatial barrier disappeared, and he was just about to move around a little when he discovered that the omnipresent darkness had enshrouded his body again, immobilizing him on the spot again. Lin, F***CK to Bai? Could it be that he had no choice but to be a bystander? He wasn't the only one who was feeling indignant. Tina and Xiaozo were also extremely indignant as they stood rooted to the spot like wooden blocks. Thankfully, Chun Hao didn't have an opportunity to attack them. Otherwise, they would all be dead meat. This was the terrifying power of the nine-tailed divine fox. She was only at the pinnacle of the return to void stage, but she was already this terrifying. If they didn't have the power of the divine Tao to keep the darkness at bay, they wouldn't even have a chance to move. To the nine-tailed divine fox, all beings below the return to void final stage were ants. On the battlefield, as a mighty figure who had mastered the power of the spatial divine Tao, Bai Ling had done a lot of research on the nine-tailed divine fox's ability to merge into the darkness. She flashed toward the very center of the darkness before splaying her hands open, and her divine sense spread to every corner of the darkness as countless streams of information flashed through her eyes. Found you. She launched an almighty fist toward a certain spot in the air. The space instantly twisted and crumbled amid a howl of agony. The nine-tailed divine fox reappeared, and it hurtled back in retreat. Darkness slaughter. It let loose an enraged roar, and the darkness around it surged violently toward all of the living beings within the darkness. Bai Ling's expression shifted drastically, and she immediately unleashed her spatial power to teleport Lin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe together before enshrouding them in a protective barrier with her power of the divine Tao. It was exactly because of this distraction that her body was struck by the darkness, and she threw up a large mouthful of blood. Big Sister Bai. Lin let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing this, and his fists clenched tightly together. Never would he have thought that he would become a burden one day. Qing Beichun, Bai Muyu, and Yu Do had already unleashed attacks upon the nine-tailed divine fox again. Bai Muyu's frosty sword Dao had reached the pinnacle. Qing Beichun's attacks were unpredictable and lethal, and Yu Do's attacks were as heavy as a massive mountain. The coordination between the three of them could be said to be flawless, with control and output. The only thing they lacked was absolute suppression of power. That's right, even though their attacks were very well-rounded, they were still unable to break through Chun Hao's defenses. Chun Hao's nine tails danced through the air like a horde of demons, disintegrating and engulfing one powerful attack after another. Not only that, but he was also able to retaliate from time to time, thereby giving him the upper hand over the three mighty figures. If things continued like this, all three of them were going to be defeated by Chun Hao. Big Sister Bai, hug me tight, and Lin suddenly said. Bai Ling's eyes widened with incredulity as she turned toward Lin. Lin was trying to tease her at a time, like this. Hug me and get within 100 meters of Chun Hao. I'm going to absorb his energy. And Lin added. Bai Ling came to a sudden realization, and a warm smile appeared on her face. I'll take you flying. She wrapped an arm around Lin's waist before transforming into a streak of white light that tore through the darkness toward the nine-tailed divine fox. Chapter 1022. Lin flew through the air with Bai Ling in her arms, and all of the power of darkness around him was kept at bay by Bai Ling's spatial divine Tao. Everything around them quickly receded into the distance. Lin drew closer and closer to Chun Hao. The nine-tailed divine fox immediately whipped a massive black tail through the air, and the space around him began to congeal at the same time. In order to prevent Bai Ling from using spatial skipping, the nine-tailed divine fox had already unleashed his attack and spatial seal at the same time. Bai Ling's expression did not change in the slightest, as if she had already predicted that the nine-tailed divine fox would use this method. A white formation suddenly appeared on the back of her hand, upon which a white light that was as soft and smooth as jelly enshrouded both her and Lin's bodies, instantly breaking through the nine-tailed divine fox's spatial seal as her speed increased explosively once again. The massive tail swept through the air, and the ball of light quickly rose into the air to evade the attack in the nick of time. The other three returned to avoid final stage mighty figures didn't know what Bai Ling was trying to do, but they knew that she was doing something extremely important, so they began to attack Chun Hao with all their might in order to draw away Bai Ling's attention. Countless ghostly heads materialized from the massive tail, all of which pounced toward Bai Ling. Bai Ling didn't slow down at all. She used her hand as a saber, and like a female warrior slaying ghosts, she slashed through the air in a series of sharp trajectories, slicing through all of the oncoming black, ghostly heads. Finally, she reached the nine-tailed divine fox's back and swung Lin toward the nine-tailed divine fox's back. Go, Lin! Boom! Lin crashed viciously into the nine-tailed divine fox's back. Chun Hao howl! Lin's head was spinning, and tears were about to flow from his eyes. He only needed Bai Ling to get him within 100 meters of Chun Hao, not to get him into close contact with Chun Hao. Why the hell was he being tossed around like a human bomb? A smug smile appeared on Bai Ling's face as she looked at Lin, who had crashed into Chun Hao's back. Her plan was actually quite simple, and Lin needed to get close to Chun Hao, so she would get Lin to stick close to Chun Hao. That was the safest method, and it wasn't like it was impossible. And Lin grumbled internally, but the image of a golden eye still appeared on his forehead. Divine Plunder Technique, activate. A vast array of spells instantly appeared in his mind. Fortunately, Lin's soul was powerful, Otherwise, he would have exploded from the overwhelming amount of information. Among the many spell techniques, he chose to steal the Master of Darkness. In that instant, the nine-tailed divine fox felt as if he had lost something. F***CK off. The divine fox god roared as the power of the divine Tao erupted from his body and blasted Enlin flying. Enlin threw up a mouthful of blood from the terrifying power of the dark divine Tao, and his body was caught by Bai Ling as he flew through the air. At such a close distance, even Bai Ling would find it difficult to protect Enlin, so it was best to distance themselves from him. "Enlin, you're the best!" Bai Ling exclaimed with elation. Enlin was at a loss. What's wrong?" Bai Ling stared at Enlin in shock. "You didn't know? Now, the restraining power in the darkness has completely disappeared." Enlin's heart also jolted upon hearing this. "So, I can move freely now." Bai Ling's eyes narrowed with a smile. "What do you think? You don't even know what you've done? I'm starting to wonder if you were the one who did this." A resigned smile appeared on Enlin's face. They had been in a dire situation at the time, and there were simply too many spell techniques for him to analyze all of them. As such, he could only choose the spell technique with the most bad *SS name. Master of Darkness. Who would have thought that the Master of Darkness was the spell technique that the nine-tailed divine fox god had used to restrict their movements? Enlin carefully reflected on the true intent of the spell technique before waving his hand toward the darkness, upon which invisible undercurrents began to surge. This feeling was very good. It was as if he was the Master of Darkness. "Big Sister Bai, don't run anymore," Enlin urged. Bai Ling looked at the man in her arms. "I want to fight." Enlin spoke in a firm voice. Chun Hao clearly knew what he had lost, and he turned to Enlin with an enraged roar. "Hao, what did you do to me?" Just his roar alone sent shockwaves rippling through the air for several kilometers. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face in the face of this terrifying soundwave attack as he continued onward atop his brick with a calm expression. The soundwave crashed into a spot over 1,000 feet in front of him, but it was as if it had struck an invisible wall and was instantly repelled. Chun Hao's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this, and a sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. Enlin looked directly at the nine-tailed divine fox god and spread open his arms with a mocking expression on his face. "I, Enlin, am the true master of this darkness." Boom! Boundless darkness surged in a frenzy to imprison the gargantuan nine-tailed divine fox. "Ow! That's my power! How'd you steal my power?" The nine-tailed divine fox was both shocked and enraged as dazzling divine light erupted from his body to keep the surrounding darkness at bay. Chun Hao's home turf had now become Enlin's home turf. Qing Beichan, Bai Muyu, Yudo, and Bai Ling all launched attacks toward Chun Hao at the same time. They were the ones being suppressed by the darkness before, and they were forced to unleash their power of the divine Tao to defend themselves, while Chun Hao was completely unrestrained. Now, the situation was reversed. They were completely at ease, while Chun Hao was being suppressed by the darkness. The result of this was a complete reversal of the battle situation. One earth-shattering spell technique after another fell upon the nine-tailed divine fox, and he was quickly forced into a disadvantageous position. Yudo broke through the defense of the nine-tailed divine fox's tail and sent him flying with a single punch. Bai Muyu's sword projection froze space as she slashed down upon the nine-tailed divine fox's head. "Ow! White bone hell!" A suit of white bone armor suddenly appeared on the nine-tailed divine fox's body. The sword projection struck the nine-tailed divine fox's armor, upon which dazzling light erupted, but it was unable to break through the defense. Right at this moment, countless extremely sharp white bone spikes appeared from the darkness before stabbing toward Bai Muyu and Yu Do in a frenzy. The white bone spikes were extremely terrifying, and when they struck Yu Do's body, they were able to inflict a series of wounds upon his body. Bai Muyu quickly swung her sword to defend herself, but she was knocked back several hundred meters with each and every clash between her sword and the white bone spikes. The nine-tailed divine fox let loose a string of unsettling cries after donning the white bone armor. and the crimson light in his eyes became even more intense. He was clearly on the verge of losing his mind. Countless intertwining bones blossomed like a ferocious lotus flower with a nine-tailed divine fox at the center. Qing Beichun swung his claws through the air to swat the oncoming white bone spikes away before slowly opening his eyes. If he continues to fight like this, Chun Hao's divine Tao is going to degenerate, and he's going to self-destruct. So all we have to do is stall for time? And Lin asked. A wry smile appeared on Bai Ling's face. Stall for time? If we really do that, there's a very good chance that he'll take one or more of us down with him before he self-destructs. A faint smile appeared on Qing Beichun's face, and his body gradually expanded before instantly transforming into an eight-tailed divine fox. The best way is to kill Chun Hao before he degenerates. And Lin nodded as his eyes also lit up. Seeing as that's the case, I'll try out the new spell technique I just came up with. Chapter 10:23. The nine-tailed divine fox seemed to have gained the upper hand again after unleashing his white bone hell. The four returned to void stage mighty figures were all forced into retreat by its bones. The white bone was like the scythe of the grim reaper in the darkness, constantly shuttling back and forth and cutting. If one was the slightest bit careless, they would be pierced through. Qing Beichun, Bai Ling, Bai Muyu, and Yudo had all detected Chun Hao's abnormality, and they knew that they had to end this battle as soon as possible, so they all decided to unleash their trump cards. Qing Beichun pounced toward Chun Hao and unleashed his claws. Qing Divine Seal. A boundless divine seal appeared before his hands. Azure Divine Tao light pierced through the surrounding darkness as it flew toward the nine-tailed divine fox. This was the paramount divine seal left behind by the ancestors of the Green Fox tribe. It was created by a Tao integration stage divine fox, and it possessed the power to vanquish all techniques. All of the white bone attacks that came into contact with the divine seal quickly collapsed and were annihilated into the tiniest particles. Rumble. The divine seal crashed into the nine-tailed divine fox's white bone lotus flower, shattering its skeleton before shattering it with ease. The nine-tailed divine fox sensed the danger, and his nine tails formed a circular shield in front of him. The azure divine seal collided with the nine tails, causing energy to explode outwards. An extremely powerful annihilating force tore through the nine tails, leaving ghastly bloody wounds on them. Roar! Chun Hao let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was blasted away by the azure divine seal. At the same time, a mountain-like pressure came from behind him. Dragon Snake Rock Fist. Yudo's entire body was enshrouded in golden flames, making him look like a moving sun. His fist was imbued with monstrous power, and he ferociously hammered it toward Chun Hao's backside. Scram! Chun Hao was infuriated. His eyes turned crimson as he turned around abruptly, his claws whistling through the air towards Yudo's fist. The power of the divine Tao at the pinnacle of the return to void stage was unleashed without any reservation. Rumble. When the two collided, the shockwaves of energy swept out for dozens of miles. The momentum of the fist was suppressed by the power of the claws. The nine-tailed divine fox's power of the divine Tao tore through Yudo's fist before crashing into Yudo's body with all its might, knocking him flying with blood gushing from his mouth. Space Spiritual Source Slash. A cold and ethereal voice sounded. Bai Ling unleashed her trump card when Chun Hao attacked Yudo. Thin blue lines formed a net and descended from the sky. The terrifying sharpness caused the space to tremble and crack. This was spatial energy that had been condensed to the extreme, and it could easily cut through all hard objects. Even space was as fragile as tofu in front of it. Bai Ling's spiritual energy slicing was extremely fast, and it instantly landed on the nine-tailed divine fox's white bone armor. A sharp screeching sound erupted, and the white bones materialized from the nine-tailed divine fox's power of the divine Tao were slowly being torn apart by the thin blue lines. The white bone armor was torn apart, and black blood splattered everywhere. The nine-tailed divine fox howled with agony as he unleashed his power of the divine Tao with all his might to defend himself. The nine-tailed divine fox's defenses were riddled with openings. Chun Hao colluded with outsiders and plotted to harm the prodigies of his own clan. He destroyed the foundation of our fox clan and should be executed according to the law. Today, I will eliminate you, the scourge of the fox clan, on behalf of our ancestors. Bai Muyu slit her wrist and offered her blood essence to the sword. A sword projection soared into the sky, and the extremely low temperatures froze the space around it. She held the blood sword in her hand, and she descended upon the nine-tailed divine fox's head from above. One sword strike, and all techniques were parted. The pure white sword projection sliced the darkness in half, as if nothing could stop this sword strike. The nine-tailed divine fox's body was frozen by the power of extreme frost, and even his blood seemed to have congealed. Splat! The white sword projection fell and decapitated the nine-tailed divine fox's head. At this moment, Lin had been teleported to the air above the nine-tailed divine fox by Tina, and he was just about to unleash his most powerful technique when he was completely dumbstruck by the sight of the decapitated nine-tailed divine fox. This was an F*King happening. He hadn't even attacked yet. However, the darkness did not dissipate, and sinister laughter reverberated throughout the entire space. You want to kill me? I won't die until I kill all of you. The nine-tailed divine fox's tail slowly rose, and the bones on its semi-transparent black tail became as red as blood. At the same time, a pair of eyes appeared on its tail. And Lin's expression shifted drastically. So the tail was the main body. His voice reverberated within his sea of vital energy. And Kirin, Holy Flame Vermilion Bird, I need your help. The two of them raised their heads at the same time. And Kirin was quite enthusiastic, but the Vermilion Bird was a little reluctant, but it still let loose a light cry. Boom! And Lin unleashed his origin energy of the netherworld, and his aura swelled explosively to the return to void stage. A golden lotus flashed on his forehead as he activated his Earth Lotus Supreme skill to its fullest extent, and the projection of a golden fist began to appear on Lin's arm. 5 dazzling bolts of lightning erupted from Kirin's sea of vital energy. Devastating golden void lightning enshrouded his golden fist, and the power of the darkness of origin made the lightning as black as ink. At the same time, the flaming phoenix let loose a clear cry as a paramount holy flame fused into his fist. Gradually, the mountain-quaking fist, which was imbued with the power of the earth, took on a platinum color. With the assistance of the Vermilion Bird and Kirin, the power of the golden void lightning and holy flame was fused into the mountain-quaking fist to its fullest extent. And this wasn't the limit. And Lin looked up at the darkness between heaven and earth before unleashing his Lord of Darkness power. Rumble, boundless darkness compressed his mountain-quaking fist in a frenzy, preventing it from exploding prematurely. And Lin continued to inject power into his mountain-quaking fist. Double the energy, triple the energy, quadruple the energy within his body was quickly being sucked away. And Lin swallowed pills to replenish his energy as he injected power into his fist. The platinum color of the mountain-quaking fist became more and more dazzling, and the divine might emanating from it seemed to be able to suppress the darkness between heaven and earth. The nine-tailed divine fox's body shuddered, and he had clearly also noticed the terrifying spell technique that was slowly accumulating in the air above him. And Lin, Chun Hao's voice was filled with boundless hatred, as if he were being ravaged by a demon. However, he didn't even get a chance to do anything before the 4 return to void stage mighty figures unleashed their attacks again. This time, they were trying to control the spell technique in order to create an opportunity for Enlin. Enlin's divine body was unable to withstand the terrifying power of the spell technique, and it began to crack open as blood stained his entire arm. He knew that if things continued like this, his arm was going to explode. And Lin turned to the 9-tailed divine fox on the ground before descending from the sky. He launched an almighty punch with his bloodied arm. Eightfold darkness, holy flame, mountain, quaking, lightning fist. The platinum fist was like the rising sun, pulverizing all of the darkness between heaven and earth. It slowly descended, as if it were the calm before a nuclear bomb crashed into the ground. Everything remained silent and unmoving, and only its dazzling light remained. The nine-tailed divine fox twisted its body frantically, but the layers of control spell techniques made it unable to escape. It had nowhere to put its 9 tails, and a sense of impending doom engulfed its entire body. Just like that, the fist landed on its body. At that moment, all the restrictions on it disappeared. Boom! Eightfold, darkness-type, holy fire mountain, quaking lightning fist exploded. The platinum energy instantly engulfed everything in the surroundings. Life, soil, dust, void, everything was annihilated by that terrifying energy. The darkness that was powerful enough to engulf the light of the sun was instantly pulverized by the white energy. A fireball that was even more dazzling than the sun appeared in this world. Destructive power ravaged everything. The power of the earth, the power of death, the power of annihilation, the power of the golden void lightning, and the power of the holy flame all erupted in an unbridled manner. Space was shattered, and chaotic turbulence erupted. The earth tremored and cracked open as terrifying shock waves swept forth for over 1,000 kilometers. At that moment, all of the living beings in the Fox tribe territory could see the platinum sun rising from the ground, bringing boundless light and heat to this world. Chapter 1024. Eightfold darkness, holy flame, mountain, quaking, lightning fist. This was a spell technique that Enlin had created on the spur of the moment. Not only did this fist possess all of the advantages of the traditional nuclear lightning fist, but it was also imbued with the power of the Lord of Darkness, and Kirin, the holy flame, vermilion bird, and pills. However, he was still not satisfied, and he continued to inject power into the fist, elevating it to 8 times its original power. To think that he had managed to create such a massive hodgepodge. In all honesty, even Enlin didn't know just how powerful this fist was. He regretted his decision in the instant that the explosion occurred. He regretted not running further away. The terrifying explosion instantly pulverized the nine-tailed divine fox's world of darkness. The nine-tailed divine fox's blood-curdling cries came to an abrupt end. Not only that, but it also engulfed all of the mighty figures present, including Enlin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe. All of the 4-9 immortal sect and Fox tribe powerful beings had already fled into the distance. However, they were still not spared from the explosion. They were still struck by the shock waves of the explosion and were knocked flying into the distance. The center of the explosion had already transformed into a white ball that twisted and shattered space. But the energy and shock waves radiating from the explosion extended into infinity and beyond, tearing up the entire ground below. Even Tang Shimin, who was standing at the pinnacle of the explosion, was knocked off the cliff by the shock waves. Holy F***CK. What the hell is this destructive energy? Did some living being self-destruct? Shui Zhantian's expression turned pale with fright as he was held in Su Xiaolan's arms. How could a self-destruct unleash such terrifying power? I don't believe it. Even the self-destruction of a return to void stage fatso of over 50 million kilograms wouldn't be able to unleash such power. Woof. Dabai was not being held in Su Xiaolan's arms due to his size and personality, so he immediately objected. Su Xiaolan unleashed her true dragon wall to protect everyone from the shockwaves. She pursed her lips as she looked at the terrifying energy surging through the air. The power is very similar to the nuclear lightning fist that Enlin used in the past. But isn't this power a little too ridiculous? That's right, this level of power didn't feel like something that a return of void stage mighty figure could unleash. What I'm most worried about is that Enlin is still within the range of this move. Will he really be fine? Xin Yuan Cheng said worriedly. If that move was unleashed by Master, then there's no need to worry. Have you ever heard of anyone using their own technique to blow themselves up? No one would be that stupid, Xiao Hong said in her sweet voice. No, I've heard of it before, Xinyuan Cheng replied solemnly. Lu Qianhuan massaged her brows and continued, Xiao Hong, your master is exactly the kind of person you're talking about. During the Tao Exchange Conference of the Four Powers, he was the one who annihilated an entire team with a single punch. Oh, that's right. He killed himself and his teammates. Little Red. Little Red had nothing to say. She felt that she didn't understand her master well enough. The explosion gradually subsided. The destructive energy gradually dissipated. The destruction of space and the turbulence of primal chaos continued. Everyone turned their eyes toward the center of the explosion. Su Xiaolan and the others had already begun to converge toward the center of the explosion. Within a crater with no end in sight, a mushroom cloud was blown away by a certain power. Enlin. Su Xiaolan suddenly rushed toward a certain direction. Within the crater, she picked up a charred male in her arms. Her arms were trembling slightly, and her eyes were red as tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Enlin was in an extremely pitiful state. He was like a piece of charcoal, and his vitality was almost undetectable. Thankfully, he still had a heartbeat, and his evergreen technique was still circulating on its own to repair his injuries. Otherwise, Su Xiaolan would have collapsed on the spot. Su Xiaolan pulled out an immortal pill from her storage ring without hesitation and stuffed it into Enlin's mouth. Giant Enlin, a sobbing voice rang out. There was a fairy in Enlin's clasped hands, and she was struggling to open her palms. Even though her body was injured, she had been very well protected, so she had not fainted. However, tears began to flow from her eyes upon seeing the state Enlin was in. Wah, Giant Enlin, why did you get injured so badly for me? Wah. Tina was sobbing uncontrollably as she frantically unleashed her power to heal Enlin's injuries. Don't be too sad, little Na. Big brother and didn't get injured so badly for you. He would have been in this state regardless of whether he was protecting you or not. Woof. Dabai consoled her. Tina, the fairy glared at Dabai. Can't you just let me be a little touched? Are you all right, master? Xiao Zhe limped over with bloodstains all over his body, and there was a panicked expression on his face as he looked at Enlin. He was situated quite far away from the center of the explosion, and his skin was quite thick, making him one of the most powerful return to void stage cultivators. Even so, he had still sustained very severe injuries. His injuries have already stabilized. I really didn't think that he would use a technique like this again. It's a self-inflicted wound, Su Xiaolan said with a resigned expression. You're wrong. It's not injuring 1,000 enemies, but injuring 800. It's injuring 1,000 enemies, but injuring 5,600. Yudo's body began to appear, and his entire body was riddled with wounds from which blood was gushing forth, creating an extremely wretched sight. Su Qinyun cocked her head to the side with a confused expression. How could it be injuring 5,600? What kind of joke is that? Bai Ling made her way over to them expressionlessly. 800 times 7 equals 5,600. Everyone came to a sudden realization. There were a total of 7 allies on the battlefield, and Enlin had killed 1 enemy, but he had also crippled 7 allies, including himself, injuring 5,600 for the sake of killing 1,000 enemies. Big Brother and his bad *SS. Woof. Dabai was astonished. What an unprecedented feat. Shui Zhantian chimed in. All of the other mighty figures couldn't be bothered with these beast pets, and they all turned their attention to Enlin. What's the situation like now? Bai Muyu dragged her wounded body over to Enlin with a concerned expression. He's fine. He has very strong life force. A smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she pulled out a coffin before placing Enlin into it. Bai Muyu, Yudo, and the others all grimaced upon hearing this. This is what you meant by fine? He's already in a coffin. How can you be so calm? Have you gone insane? Soon, they understood what was going on. That coffin possessed extremely powerful healing effects. In conjunction with the immortal pill and the power of the second stage of the evergreen technique, his body was rapidly recovering at a rate discernible to the naked eye. Chen Hao has been blasted into a skeleton. Qing Beichen slowly made his way over to them. His handsome features were char-black, but he was still very handsome. He tossed a storage ring towards Su Xiaolan. And Lin contributed the most to this operation, so you can have Chun Hao's spoils of war. Thank you, Senior. Su Xiaolan accepted the storage ring with a smile. And Lin had risked his life for this, so she accepted it without any qualms. Qing Beichen turned to Bai Muyu and said, "The biggest enemy has been eliminated, but there will still be repercussions. The remaining forces of the Black Fox tribe will either be eliminated or absorbed into their ranks. As for the threat of the Spirit Fish clan, we should also prepare to deal with them." Bai Muyu nodded. The four major powers of the Fox tribe are the White Fox, Black Fox, Green Fox, and Red Fox. It looks like the Black Fox tribe will have to retire from the scene. Without the support of a Return to Void final stage mighty figure, it was no longer a top-rate power. Chun Hao's son, Chun Nan, is a problem. He has a very close relationship with Lan Xiaoni of the Spirit Fish clan. If the two of them get married, then it'll be very difficult to deal with the Black Fox tribe. Qing Beichen was a little distressed. Right at this moment, a heroic voice sounded from the distance. If you're worried about Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni getting married, then you don't have to worry anymore. That's because Chun Nan's head is with me. A cultivator flew over atop his sword with a heroic expression. Chapter 1025. Under everyone's gaze, a man flew over on his sword. A bunch of Return to Void stage mighty figures were staring at him. A bunch of Return to Void stage mighty figures were staring up at him. This was the pinnacle of Tang Shiman's life. Tang Shiman flew over gracefully atop his sword before landing beside him. Lin. "I brought Chun Nan's head." He tossed out a human head from his storage ring as he spoke. Thump! The head fell to the ground. "Piss off, piss off, piss off." Everyone let loose cries of surprise upon seeing the human head. It really was Chun Nan's head. Bad *SS, Brother Tang. Woof. Dabai clapped his hands in praise. "Senior student Tang, you really can't judge a book by its cover," Su Qinyan chimed in her mellow voice. Tang Shiman's chest constricted slightly upon receiving praise from his female student. What did she mean by that? Didn't he look bad *SS? He clearly had the disposition of a powerful being. Chun Nan was a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage. He was extremely cunning and had many trump cards up his sleeves. Qing Beichen praised with a smile. Tang Shiman also joined his hands in salute. "You're far too kind, Senior. It's just a small matter." These words were very satisfying to hear, and they were coming from the leader of the Green Fox tribe. Chun Nan's death was extremely significant to the Green Fox tribe. After all, Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni weren't married yet, so there was a limit to how much the Spirit Fish clan could retaliate. As such, there would be much less resistance when it came to purging the Black Fox tribe. Not long after that, another burst of energy fluctuations erupted from a distance. Su Xiaolan and the others looked up to discover that it was Xiao Chou and Bai Yao. The explosion had created such a huge commotion that they would be able to identify where they were as long as they weren't blind. "Little Yao, why are you here?" Bai Muyu heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that Bai Yao was safe and sound. "Xiao Chou and I were very worried about you," Bai Yao replied. Xiao Chou's face turned deathly pale upon seeing Lin's charred body, and he almost burst into tears as he rushed toward the coffin. Fortunately, Su Xiaolan explained in time that Lin's life was not in danger. Only then did he suppress the sadness in his heart. Xiao Chou turned to look at the human head in Tang Shiman's hand, and his eyes lit up. "Senior student Tang, you killed Chun Nan who escaped from me and little Yao? This is great." Tang Shiman's face convulsed as he stared incredulously at Xiao Chou. He was currently in the process of showing off, so how could the clown mercilessly expose the fact that he was picking up the last hit? That's right. Chun Nan resisted quite strongly at the time. That was an earth-shattering battle, and several dozen mountains were blasted apart in succession before Chun Nan was finally slain. A reminiscent expression appeared on Tang Shiman's face as he tried to redeem himself. All the students rolled their eyes. Didn't they know just how powerful Tang Shiman was? In short, the battle had finally come to an end. and Lin also gradually regained consciousness. He saw everyone staring at him with concern across the coffin, and he couldn't help but shed tears of regret. Xiaolan, let me explain. I really went too far this time. I really didn't want to take such a risk. Hee hee. You can explain it to me after you've recovered. Su Xiaolan chuckled coldly. Seniors, how did you guys also sustain such severe injuries? Could it be that Chunhao didn't die from that attack of mine, and he retaliated with all his might? Hee hee. Mr. Lin sure knows how to joke. We were all killed by you. Cold sweat poured down on Lin's forehead as he turned to look at Tang Shimin and the human head beneath his feet. Impressive, senior student Tang. You managed to land the killing blow and kill him. Tang Shimin felt as if a sword had been stabbed into his heart again, and he roared with rage in his heart. You're lying in a coffin, yet you still want to insult me? Huh? Hee hee. Classmate and Lin sure has sharp eyes, Tang Shimin grumbled. And Lin looked at Tang Shimin's darkened expression and couldn't help but wonder if he had said something wrong. Did he say something wrong? That couldn't be right. Tang Shimin was only at the spirit-nurturing final stage, so he could only have killed Chen Nan, who was at the soul formation pinnacle stage. Xiao Chou was the most emotional of all of them. After seeing and Lin wake up, he didn't even look at his wife. Instead, he wanted to stay by Lin's side. Oi, Xiao Chou, I told you I'm fine, so don't neglect the bride. And Lin said with a resigned expression. Big brotherin, you were injured because of me, so how could I abandon you? You're the most important person right now, and I want to keep an eye on you. Xiao Chou spoke with an extremely sincere expression. And Lin silently closed his eyes as he stared at Xiao Chou's ghastly face plastered to the coffin. Idiot, you want to keep an eye on me, but I don't want to keep an eye on you. I want to see beautiful women like Xiaolan, Su Qinyun, and Su Qinyun. Why did you have to come here just to stain my eyes? In any case, the 4-9 Immortal Sect and the Fox Tribe were the victors of this battle. Under Lin's vehement insistence, the wedding continued. As for the battle and the earth-shattering explosion, Lin only smiled. Xiao Chou, did you like the cannon salute I prepared for your wedding? Xiao Chou sobbed uncontrollably. Bai Yao was extremely touched. She felt like Xiao Chou's master was peerlessly domineering. Qinghu City was once again transformed into a sea of joy. Dancing and singing filled the air, and there were countless guests. Due to their victory, the Fox Tribe was even more elated. A series of beautiful Fox Tribe beauties danced on the stage. Some of them were even pole dancing with great enthusiasm, and in Lin and the others' hearts were surging with excitement. Man, Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. She was a little displeased, but she couldn't let Lin and the others down on such a joyous occasion, so she could only sit off to the side with Su Qinyun and munch on sunflower seeds. And Lin was already able to get out of the coffin. As for his internal injuries, he would be able to recover after a few days of rest. Fireworks blossomed in the night sky, illuminating the monotonous night sky. This was going to be a sleepless night. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao made their way to the VIP seats and offered toast to everyone. Xiao Chou made his way to Lin and downed 9 cups of wine in a row before bursting into tears again with Lin in his arms. Bai Yao raised her wine cup and made her way over to Lin with a dainty smile on her face. Big brother Lin, if it weren't for you, Xiao Chou and I wouldn't be together. I'll remember all of this in my heart. Hence, I'll toast this cup of wine to you. After going to so many tables, this was the first time she drank the cup of highly alcoholic, celestial wine in such a straightforward manner. And Lin naturally wasn't going to hesitate and also down the entire cup of wine in one go. I wish you happiness. And Lin said. Bai Yao and Xiao Chou both nodded with earnest expressions. This happiness hadn't come easily to them, so they were definitely going to cherish it. They chatted for a while longer. Not long after that, they left the banquet. Yes, they were going to welcome the 3 great joys of their lives, the wedding night. Chapter 10:26. A string of information instantly appeared in his mind. The first thing that caught his eye was 230 vital stones, which was equivalent to 2,300,000 spirit stones. And Lin was quite impressed by the sight of a vixen dancing around. Xiao Hong wagged her head from side to side. What's so good about marriage? You should learn from me and embrace the sun. Praise the sun. The sun is justice. The sun is happiness. His eyes rolled over. Divine inspection technique. He suddenly said, "Take off your pink undergarments and reveal your smooth, jade-like body. Your snowy white peaks stand tall, and your fragrance is so alluring that I'm drooling." That place was isolated from the hustle and bustle, and it was as tranquil as a paradise. A faint smile appeared on his face as he refined the storage ring. I'm so angry. However, such a wondrous woman was being embraced by a wondrous monkey. You're a return to void, final stage mighty figure, but you don't even have an immortal tool? Lin was a little exasperated. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but feel like their master and disciple relationship was a little too good. Big Brother Cho has become the first winner in our beast pet team, woof. Dabai sighed with emotion. Dabai continued, "You've mesmerized countless starving people. They've captured you, pinched you, sucked you in their mouths, and chewed on you. I've never been able to leave you since I was a child. Ah, my dear Peanut. Look at that Xiao Zhe. He's been staring at the stage the entire time. Why would he think of feeding his master?" The veins on Lin's forehead bulged. "I refuse to believe this. I'm going to open you up. I've been tricked." 2,000 words were omitted below, and Lin silently turned his eyes toward the center of the stage. "Smells so good, woof." After enjoying the dance, and Lin turned his eyes toward the ring in his hand. He pulled out the box, only to find that he couldn't find a way to open it. And Lin, after that, he turned his attention to other things. There were 3 high-ranked spirit tools as well as some miscellaneous materials, but there was nothing that surprised him. And Lin was extremely excited, and he immediately unleashed his divine inspection technique. There weren't many immortal pills, only one, but it was a second-grade immortal pill of an extremely high rank. There were 3 healing celestial fruits. The 6th Revolution Green Essence Fruit was a 5th-grade celestial fruit. He couldn't be bothered with the 2 pet beasts with improper views on love and continued watching the performance on stage. He's not just in Lin's servants, beast pets, and disciples. He's the winner of our entire 4-9 immortal sect. Tang Shiman's blood was boiling with envy. If he could marry such a beautiful wife, then he would have no regrets in his life. Sure enough, accepting a little lowly as a disciple was much better than accepting a girl. A rough calculation showed that his current assets were close to 70 million spirit stones, and he was getting closer and closer to his target of 100 million. Lin chuckled and thought to himself, "What do you know?" Everyone looked on with envy at Xiao Cho and Bai Yao's departing figures. Wasn't feeding her something that her would-be Dao companion should do? And Lin opened his mouth and bit down on the fruit that Yiling had handed to him before carefully tasting it. Su Xiaolan turned to Lin and Yiling with a vexed expression. It was over for a little girl, so sweet. A series of handsome male foxes danced, sang, and performed spell techniques, and all of the female spectators screamed in excitement. Was this a mockery? This had to be a mockery, right? Also, he felt like something was a little off, as if this wasn't how things were supposed to play out. However, a strange box caught his attention. In case everyone was saying that he was a water addict. Following, there was a dozen or so high-ranked spirit pills and spirit fruits, all of which exuded astonishing energy fluctuations. It's not just the beast pet group. It's my servant group, my beast pet group, my disciple group, and myself who were the first winners in life. And Lin was very tired. What kind of experience was it to have his beast pets consummate their wedding night before him? Dark Phoenix Dead Spirit Pill, a second-grade immortal pill refined from the bone marrow of a mythological beast. Consumption of this pill can enhance one's divine sense and absorb the power of dark flames. There is also a certain chance that one will be able to master the Tao of the Dark Phoenix. Xiao Cho and Bai Yao drank some wine from one another before snuggling up against each other on the bed. And Lin fell silent as he looked at the smooth wooden box before him. He had only just recovered from his severe injuries, so he was not in a good position to move around, so he was naturally able to bask in his disciple's attention. However, in another place, what followed was a series of erotic scenes. On the stage, a beautiful female fox danced in a myriad of ways. Her hips were swaying from side to side, and her seductive eyes seemed to be able to seduce the onlooker's soul. It's an auspicious day, and it's the time to open the storage ring. Let me see what's inside the storage ring of the leader of the Black Fox tribe, Chen Hao. He pried open the peanut shells with his paws as he spoke and took off his pink underwear before continuing to eat. The candlelight flickered, and the white fox and the monkey were both intoxicated. That's strange. Why isn't there a part to open a box? Bai Yao lowered her head shyly as a faint smile appeared on her face. Her bashfulness was tinged with a hint of seduction, and her seductive demeanor was enough to enchant all of the male foxes. All of a sudden, she came to a realization. He hesitated momentarily before deciding to consume this pill after his body had fully recovered. The fox tribe was extremely proficient in the art of beauty, and it wasn't just limited to the beauty of humans. There were countless types of dances, and they could make rock golems, vegetable golems, and flatbread monsters reach orgasm just by looking at them. Everyone else also averted their gazes with awkward expressions on their faces. However, they were too embarrassed to hammer Dubai, as Dubai was right. They were the ones who were thinking the wrong thing. Thankfully, all of the female cultivators of the 4-9 Immortal sect were more reserved and not as crazy as the other female fans. This was perhaps because they were used to seeing Big Brother Chung, so they had developed an immunity toward handsome men. A mechanical wooden box could not be opened by a brainless person. "Master, here, have a bite." Yi Ling peeled off the shell of a precious fruit before placing the fruit into Enlin's mouth. "What the F***CK? You're only telling me this after talking for so long? What's so good about marriage? Is it as fun as creating a world?" Tina chimed in. However, Dubai seemed to have sensed something as he looked in the direction that Xiao Chou and Bai Yao had departed in. Enlin silently lowered his saber, and Lu Qianhuan silently put away her wand. The two of them gradually drew closer and kissed. Everyone stared at Dubai with astonishment on their faces, as if they were looking at a freak. Who would have thought that Dubai would dare to say something like this in public? Today was the pinnacle of Xiao Chou's monkey life. A wide smile appeared on Yi Ling's face at the sight of Enlin happily eating, and she continued to feed him with a sense of accomplishment. Not only did she peel fruits, but she also peeled peanuts and melon seeds. Of course, the fox tribe wouldn't ignore the female population. Little Yao were finally husband and wife. A hideous smile appeared on Xiao Chou's face. Chapter 10:27. Qinghu City was a city that never slept, and representatives from the creation realm and other places on the Tai Chu continent partied until dawn. Enlin and the others also partied until dawn. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao also partied until dawn. None of that was important. The most important thing was that Enlin had finally found the switch to that mysterious box, thereby proving that he was an intelligent man. After opening the box, there was a blue diagram within. There were a series of white dots and complex lines on the diagram, and Enlin was dumbstruck upon seeing this. Is this a spell formation? A formation diagram? It doesn't look like it. He was dizzy from the dazzling lines. He had no choice but to ask his teammates for help. This looks like a map? Xianyuan Chung asked. Lu Qianhuan nodded. This should be the star trajectory diagram of a certain place. Star trajectory diagram? This was the first time Enlin had heard of something like this. What's a star trajectory diagram? As an experienced and knowledgeable disciple, Xiao Zhe patiently answered his master's question. A star trajectory diagram is a method of determining a certain coordinate by observing the starry sky from a certain angle. Look, Master, these white dots represent the distribution of stars, and the white lines represent the orbits of the stars. When we look up at the sky from different places, there will be slight differences in the starry sky. The orbit of the starry sky is located at the place where the starry sky shown on the map can be seen at midnight. Enlin was dumbstruck. How can we tell that? The Taichu continent is so big. Are we supposed to go to every place to look at the stars and match them? That doesn't make sense. Enlin, you seem to have forgotten that there is a profession known as stargazers. Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes flashed with a mysterious light. There's a type of living being that is born with a special ability to sense the stars in the sky. They can use the movement of the stars to predict fortune and fortune, thereby allowing them to see everything in this world. In other words, they can draw upon the power of the stars to see the star trajectory diagram. Perhaps they will be able to sense the location indicated by the map. Lu Qianwan's explanation was very profound. And Lin was used to seeing all sorts of strange phenomena, and he quickly accepted this explanation. This world was very, very big, and there were countless abilities and talents in this world. He felt that it was impossible, but there might be extraordinary people who could do it. Then, who do you think will be able to decipher this artwork? And Lin asked. Lu Qian fantasized for a short while before replying. The Spirit Fish Clan and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe are both very well versed in the art of star divination. The mighty ones among them loved to play with this kind of star trajectory chart. The beings of these two races might be able to help us. And Lin frowned slightly. Suddenly, a guess exploded in his mind. The Spirit Fish Clan mighty figures like to play with these things, and Chen Hao also had one in his possession. Spirit Fish Clan, Chen Hao, Black Fox Tribe, marriage. Could all of this be related to the map in the box? And Lin was starting to get restless. Could the location marked on the map be the treasure left behind by a man who had wealth, fame, power, and everything in the world? It could make people all over the world rush to the sea soon, and Lin's eyes began to burn with raging flames. Treasure-seeking king. He was definitely going to be one. Su Xiaolan noticed in Lin's expression and spoke, "You can only go after you've recovered from your injuries." Oh. The flames in Lin's eyes were snuffed out, and he nodded obediently. Everyone rested for another day in the White Fox Imperial Palace. Xiao Chou only walked out on the evening of the second day of the wedding. And Lin, Xinyuan Cheng, Dabai, and all the other men were astonished. Seeing the clown struggling to walk, no one took the initiative to help him. F***CK. For losers like them, what interest would they have in helping a monkey winner? No one wanted to disturb Xiao Chow's happiness. Instead, they wanted to leave. I've decided. I'm going to marry a vixen sister. After witnessing the exquisitely beautiful vixen by Yao and the blissful expression on Xiao Chow's face, Tang Shimin finally made a decision. And Lin chuckled coldly. There's no point in marrying her. Do you think you can last as long as Xiao Chou? Tang Shimin. These words were like a heavy blow to Tang Shimin, causing him to feel extremely ashamed. Xiao Chou made his way over to them. And Lin turned to Xiao Chou with a strained smile on his face. You've been doing this for so long? Xiao Chou faltered slightly before nodding. That's right. I'm so tired. I've exhausted all of my yang energy. Everyone chuckled coldly. Xiao Chou was a little dumbstruck. There was nothing wrong with what he had just said. In order to save Bai Yao, he had intercourse with her for an entire day and used his dark god flame to neutralize the terrifying power of the frosty yang root, thereby resulting in his overexertion. Why was everyone looking at him with expressions of shock and inferiority? Come on, Xiao Chou, you've worked hard today. I'll be the chef today and prepare a feast for everyone. Su Xiaolan already had the demeanor of a chef god. She stood on the spot with a frying pan in her hand, exuding a sense of majesty and beauty. Everyone almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. Hard my ****. We want this kind of hard work as well. Xiao Chou was extremely touched, and he expressed his gratitude towards Su Xiaolan. Not only was his master very good to him, but his master's Dao partner-to-be was also very good to him. What a big, heartwarming family. Bai Yao also made her way over to them with a hint of a healthy flush on her face. She had clearly been well-nourished. Su Xiaolan asked with a smile, "How are you feeling, little Yao?" A gentle and shy smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she replied in a seductive and soft voice. "Thanks to Xiao Chow's tireless efforts, my frosty yang root has been cured." And Lin, everyone, that night Su Xiaolan cooked a large pot of stir-fried tiger kidney god. Su Xiaolan, Xiao Chou, little Yao, make sure to replenish your energy. And Lin and everyone else had tears streaming down their faces. They didn't need to replenish their energy. They hadn't even fired their bullets yet. If they continued to replenish their energy like this, the chamber would explode. However, who could understand their feelings of being abused one after another? Xiao Chou was extremely touched, and he expressed his gratitude towards Su Xiaolan. Not only was his master very good to him, but his Dao partner-to-be was also very good to him. Even her cooking was so caring and considerate. What a big, heartwarming family. This was a banquet that was intertwined with happiness and sorrow. Everyone stayed in Qinghu City for another day. Bai Yao and the White Fox tribe parted ways. If she married a chicken, she would follow the chicken. If she married a dog, she would follow the dog. If she married a monkey, she would follow the monkey. This beautiful Princess White Fox was going to become a member of the 4-9 Immortal Sect family. Little Yao, come back often when you have time. This will always be your second home. Tears welled up in Bai Muyu's eyes as she held the woman in her arms in a gentle voice. Got it, mother. Bai Yao hugged her mother tightly in her arms as tears streamed down her face. All of the 4-9 Immortal Sect members boarded the Space Ferry spaceship and waved farewell to the handsome men and beautiful women from the Fox tribe before rising into the sky and disappearing into the clouds. Enlin and the others had left, but this was only just the beginning. Chapter 1028. Bai Yao's arrival at the 4-9 Immortal Sect created a massive stir. Elder Monkey had taken a wife, and it was a beautiful, celestial maiden. This piece of news swept through the sect like a gust of wind, shocking all of the sect members. Everyone turned around to discover that the man who was least likely to get a wife had married a beautiful celestial maiden. What kind of explosive experience was that? On the Dao Plaza of the Dragon Pavilion. As it turns out, you don't have to be pretty to find a wife. The ordinary-looking Gongxi Chun stroked his long, flowing hair with a confident expression. Sun Xiaodai chuckled coldly. But you have to be pretty. You don't have to be handsome, but you have to be ugly. Otherwise, how are you going to make beautiful women remember you? The ordinary-looking Gongxi-chan was left speechless after being stabbed in the chest. Currently, the 4-9 Immortal Sect only had 4 pavilions: the Dragon Pavilion, the Man Pavilion, the Sword Pavilion, and the Purple Star Pavilion. In the end, Bai Yao chose to join the Man Pavilion, which was led by Little Lang. The white-scaled wolf god's mastery of the man tribe cultivation methods and techniques was quite exceptional. After a brief period of uproar, everything returned to normal. However, the sect's reputation was on the rise. News of the 4-9 Immortal Sect's victory against the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, as well as the Fox Tribe incident, began to spread throughout the Tai Chu continent. The 4-9 Immortal Sect's influence grew stronger and stronger, and no sect dared to mess with them anymore. At the very least, powers like the 9 Imperials or the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas would have to consider their own strength before making a move. Enlin rested for 5 days at the sect, and his injuries were completely healed. Xin Yuan Cheng and the others had already returned to school, and Su Xiaolan had also begun her journey to become the chef god. Enlin looked at the map in his hand with a hint of excitement in his heart. Should he go and see what was there? If this map was related to the Spirit Fish clan, then it would be quite dangerous. It would be too dangerous for him to go alone, and he would need some reinforcements. The 4-9 Immortal Sect had only just got on the right track, and the Divine Mirror Enforcement Department was beginning to shine, so he didn't have many people to go with him. And Lin tried his best to persuade the Jade Bone Immortal Bug to give up on photosynthesis with Xiao Hong and agree to go with him. The considerate Tina also agreed to come along. To her, traveling and adventuring to interesting places was her favorite thing to do. Just like that, the 3 of them immediately set off for the West Sea. As the name suggested, the West Sea was the westernmost ocean of the Tai Chu continent. The sea there was boundless, and all kinds of mysterious and powerful sea beasts and sea demons thrived there. In the West Sea, the 2 most prominent powers were the Spirit Fish clan and the Heavenly Turtle tribe. And Lin knew that these 2 tribes were also 2 of the most intelligent tribes among the 10 Realm Guardian tribes. He had even seen their development in the Divine Mirror world. All in all, the Spirit Fish clan was quite aggressive, while the Heavenly Turtle tribe was content to stay out of worldly affairs. And Lin was naturally going to look for the Heavenly Turtle tribe. 1,000. And Lin waved sword. of Yao Heaven Sea, a Yao clan, sect, San of Li of Yao, and an smile of sect disciples. And Yao, a satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face. It had to be said that Bai Ling was very adept at teaching others. This sect rule of sending off the sect leader was very much to his liking. A little fairy sat on Lin's left shoulder, which was a portable teleportation hack. A little rainbow butterfly floated on his right shoulder, which was a simple poison and barrier hack. And Lin walked toward the teleportation spell formation and began his journey to the West Sea. The farthest teleportation spell formation in the Kingdom of the Nine States could take him was the Western Paradise. The Buddhist kingdom and the Celestial Court maintained a friendly relationship, and Qing Ji had transcended his tribulation with Lin's help. He had heard a lot about this renowned region on the Tai-Chu continent, and he had always yearned to visit it. After a rush of dizziness, Lin appeared on a circular Dao Plaza. This place was filled with living beings who had been teleported here. Wow, there's so many dazzling bald heads. Xiao Hong would love this place. The J-Bone Immortal Bug had clearly been influenced by Xiao Hong, and it was extremely excited. Most of the living beings here were monks and nuns, and their bald heads shone brightly under the sun like moving light bulbs. And Lin couldn't help but recall the bald, muscular monks with benevolent smiles on their faces that had been summoned by Xiao Hong's domain upon hearing this. Thinking of this, he silently shivered again. And Lin looked up at the clear sky, the radiant sun, and the smiles on the faces of the passers-by. This place really did look like a paradise. All the shops along the way were open, and he heard that they didn't have to close at night. There were no thieves on the streets, as there was no need to steal anything. If you had no food or shelter, the monks would provide you with food and shelter. If you had no job, the monks would introduce you to a job. If you had no cultivation methods, the monks would give you a good cultivation method. If you had no money, the monks would provide you with money for emergencies. If you had no women, the monks would create an inflatable doll for you to play with. However, if you force yourself on a woman, then I'm sorry, the monks would send you to the true paradise. In any case, this was a world where you could live a very peaceful and happy life. All of your basic needs could be satisfied. There was very little desire to commit crimes. And Lin and the others strolled around the city and discovered that Qinghu City was still the most interesting place. The monks weren't as handsome as the fox boys, and the nuns weren't as seductive as the fox girls. He bought a few tranquil jaw sticks to help him relax before setting off for the West Sea. That's right, he had to get down to business. Little Na, it's all up to you now. Go west, and Lin instructed. All right, Tina spread open her arms and tore open the space before her. Cries of surprise erupted from all around. A returned void stage mighty figure who could control spatial power was extremely eye-catching no matter where they went, especially when it was being unleashed by such an adorable little fairy. Tina held onto Lin's large hand, and they stepped into the spatial passageway together. They disappeared from the heavenly realm, thus concluding their short journey. The Western Paradise was about 500,000 kilometers away from the West Sea. Tina's spatial spell techniques were extremely proficient, and Shui Zhantian's road rage disorder was no match for her. Thus, she covered 500,000 kilometers in just 2 days. Above a vast expanse of blue ocean, a spatial crack appeared, and Lin, Tina, and the Jade-Bone Immortal Bug had arrived at the legendary West Sea. Wow, there's so much water. What a huge ocean. Tina's eyes widened in amazement, and Lin's lips twitched. You should learn some idioms from Little Tion. Otherwise, it'll be very embarrassing for you to speak in such a vulgar language. Tina pursed her lips and humphed in displeasure before ignoring him. And Lin turned his eyes toward the vast ocean. So, how are we going to find the Heavenly Turtle Tribe's moving Heavenly Star Island? Chapter 1029. It was as if the mermaid had been meticulously sculpted by the heavens. She sat on a chair with her blue fishtail tilted to one side as she wept incessantly. Su Xiaolan said that I would understand once I arrived here, and Lin murmured to himself as he gazed at the boundless sea. So, what did I understand? He didn't even have any passion left. He turned his gaze toward the northwest, where there seemed to be a thin layer of mist enshrouding the area in the distance. The mermaid guard used its precious life to prove to us the sea monsters that had volunteered to be the seafood had already filled up 5 top-quality storage rings. Most of these species were trash. Aside from the fearless and brainless sea urchin warriors, who were a bit annoying, the jellyfish all silently avoided Lin. He curiously stopped the brick to see what it was. "Princess, don't cry. The dead can't be brought back to life. Don't cry," one of the mermaids consoled. And Lin, even though the sea monster was within his field of view, that didn't mean that it was very close to him. The main reason why Lin was able to see it was because the black shadow was too massive and had an extremely wide field of view. It was said that it was an island that floated in the West Sea and moved according to a certain pattern. "I'm innocent. That's not what I meant." When a woman was angry, she would not listen to reason, and Lin continued onward. The reason why he didn't speed up was so that Tina could broaden her horizons and see if there were any interesting fish in the sea. And Lin and the others continued onward, and all of the sea monsters that they killed were stowed away by Lin into a storage ring. He would be able to get some seafood to eat in the future. All of the bone-devouring fish exploded at the same time as they were unable to withstand the terrifying power. Tears streamed down the mermaid guard's face as it made its final struggle. What the F***CK was wrong with it? "Little Na, you've changed," and Lin said with a pained expression. Bam, bam, bam. At this moment, countless splashes appeared, and thousands of black fish pounced at Lin like missiles, opening their bloody, jagged mouths. Lan Xiaoni's sobs faltered upon hearing this, and her eyes widened with rage as she glowered at the mermaid guard. "What you're saying is, Chun Nin isn't ugly and crooked, and I was the one who made him out to be ugly and crooked?" Lan Xiaoni's rage was unquenchable. "Guards, drag this fish out and behead it." "Wow, Jine and Lin, look over there. What's that black thing?" Tina pointed toward a certain direction with a curious expression. "Ostriches?" And Lin looked at the tens of thousands of bone-devouring fish that swooped down, raised his hand, and pressed it into the void. "Let's go." And Lin didn't hesitate any longer, and he immediately flew off on his brick. And Lin had only used one palm to complete the magnificent feat of annihilating the entire team without the slightest bit of sloppiness. And Lin and the others continued onward in an invincible manner until they finally caught sight of the white mist in the distance. These so-called 10 great beasts of the West Sea had all been annihilated. A massive palm constructed from vital energy fell from the sky, enshrouding all of the bone-devouring fish before crashing down mercilessly. It was afraid that if it explained too slowly, and Lin would destroy all of these beasts before it did. "Please spare us, Your Highness." Faint sobbing sounds could be heard. At the same time, within the Sea Heart Palace. These are one of the 10 great beasts of the West Sea, the bone-devouring fish. Individually, they aren't very powerful, but when they attack in groups, they can unleash extremely terrifying power. The knowledgeable J-Bone Immortal Bug let loose a cry of surprise before quickly providing an explanation. "Rumble." The J-Bone Immortal Bug looked up into the sky with a dejected expression. The monsters had already been slain, so what was the point of continuing to explain? How could his words be interpreted like this? No wonder Su Xiaolan said that Lin would understand once he arrived here. The direction was indeed very clear. "Very good. We're finally about to enter the mist." The mermaid guard faltered slightly upon hearing this before offering words of consolation. "You're not blind. Young Master Chun Nan is extremely handsome and gorgeous. He's one of the most handsome men in the world." Any fearsome creature was a joke in the face of absolute power. For example, if they were going to kill a demon king, they would of course introduce how bad *SS the demon king was. Were they going to wait until the demon king was insta-killed by Lin before introducing how bad *SS the demon king was? During this time, they also encountered highly intelligent life forms such as the jellyfish tribe and the sea urchin tribe. However, to Lin and the others, this was only a scenic excursion. and Lin discovered that there was a gargantuan black shadow beneath the clear blue sea that was quickly approaching them. It struck them with the sense that a storm was about to descend, and it was extremely suffocating. And Lin immediately unleashed a mountain-quaking fist to pulverize the gargantuan octopus into mincemeat. The aura of the countless mutant beasts combined to become extremely fearsome. Little Na was no longer that considerate little cotton-padded jacket. She was a heart-wrenching pain. It would be a miracle if he didn't associate this creature with the heavenly turtle tribe after seeing it. In an instant, 2 shadow guards rushed over and dragged the Murloc guard out of the door. That's right, to normal cultivators, the West Sea was a terrifying place that was fraught with peril. Wah! I'm not crying because that asterisk star died. I'm crying because I was blind. How could I have fallen for such a crooked creature? Blood splattered through the air, and it was as if a torrential rain of blood had fallen over the surface of the sea. Lan Xiaoni ignored it and continued to cry. The gargantuan octopus, over a kilometer tall, let loose an enraged roar as its 3 massive tentacles swept toward Tina with earth-shattering power, as if to express its displeasure at being given a random name. The moving Heavenly Star Island was the main territory of the Heavenly Turtle Tribe. The Jade Bone Immortal Bug turned toward the northwest before speaking in a feeble voice. Master, do I see a very large bind head in that direction? The Jade Bone Immortal Bug heaved a light sigh of relief. Thank God it had spoken quickly. If a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator were to encounter a school of fish like this, then they would fall into despair. Unfortunately, this school of fish had encountered Lin. The mermaid guard was dumbstruck. Wow, John and Lin, look. This octopus is so big, but it only has 3 tentacles. Is this a 3-legged seal? Tina's beautiful eyes widened with excitement. Wow, little sister Little Goo is so awesome. You know so much. Go on, I want to hear more. Tina put on an adorable smile and spoke in a very understanding manner. This is a West Sea ghost hand demonic octopus. It lives in the depths of the ocean and is. The Jade Bone Immortal Bug didn't even get a chance to finish her introduction before the octopus was insta-killed. The sobbing creature was none other than the princess of the Spirit Fish clan, Lan Xiaoni. His heart tightened slightly. He was finally going to have to deal with one of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes, the Heavenly Turtle Tribe, so he was quite nervous. A massive black figure that resembled the head of a turtle shimmered in and out of existence. There were no living beings that were directly connected to that island. There weren't even any navigation routes, let alone teleportation spell formations. Tina tapped her chin. Do you understand how useless you are? Her voice faltered as a sense of indignation welled up in her heart. Thus, they traveled for tens of thousands of kilometers. Chapter 10:30. Within the Sea Heart Palace, Lan Xiaoni had cried enough. At this moment, a blue mermaid swam over slowly while wagging his tail. He wore an imperial robe and had blue hair and golden eyes. His handsome features exuded a natural sense of majesty, as if he were born to be the Lord of the Heavens. Xiaoni, are you done crying? I'm going to send people to exact revenge on the Fox Tribe and the 4-9 Immortal Sect after this is over, the mermaid said expressionlessly. There's no need, Father. There's no need to waste manpower on something as arduous as this. I'll just cry and everything will be over, Wah. Lan Xiaoni continued to cry. The blue mermaid stroked his chin and looked on silently as Lan Xiaoni cried. Lan Xiaoni sobbed and sobbed before wiping away her tears. She looked up to discover her father looking at her with a cold expression, and the atmosphere was a little strange. Keep crying. I'll just watch from here. The blue mermaid continued to look at Lan Xiaoni with a cold expression. The mighty clan leader of the Spirit Fish clan, Lan Xingyang, stared at his daughter with an extremely focused expression. Everyone fell silent once again. Lan Xiaoni, when you encounter something sad and can't help but cry and vent, but your parents look at you coldly from the side, not comforting or speaking. What kind of experience is this? You didn't even have the courage to cry anymore. This was how things were sometimes. When no one paid attention to you, you didn't feel anything when you cried. When there was someone to console you, you cried even harder. I'm done crying. Lan Xiaoni wiped away the tears on her face. A gratified smile appeared on Lan Xingyang's face. You've finally come around. Lan Xiaoni's chest constricted. Come around my ***s. Lan Xingyang continued. Seeing as you've come around, let's get down to business. It's time to enter the fallen god's seabed tomb. Your brothers have already opened a passageway for you at the Hongmeng sacrificial altar. Lan Xiaoni looked up at Lan Xingyang with surprise on her face. Chenhao's map has already been lost. How am I supposed to enter the tomb with half of the map? You don't need to worry about that. A faint smile appeared on Lan Xingyang's face. The high priest of the Hongmeng sacrificial altar has already seen the future. You'll know how to enter once you get there. Lan Xiaoni fell silent at the mention of the high priestess, and she nodded lightly. The high priest of the Hongmeng divine altar was an existence that even her Dao integration stage father greatly respected. He was an extremely powerful astrologer, capable of divining celestial phenomena. When do I go? Lan Xiaoni asked. Lan Xingyang handed a white dagger to Lan Xiaoni. Now go over there and wait. This is a power that can determine the fate of the Spirit Fish clan. Please complete your mission and obtain that information from the fallen god seabed tomb. Lan Xingyang spoke in a solemn voice. Lan Xiaoni nodded. The ancient tomb at the bottom of the fallen god seabed was protected by an ancient forbidden formation and the laws of heaven and earth. Only deity transformation realm cultivators with a key could enter, and she was the best candidate. Lan Xiaoni's brows furrowed slightly as she spread open the star trajectory chart in her hand. But the other person, who could it be? In the northwest of the West Sea, Lin entered the white mist. As soon as it entered the range of the mist, the black shadow disappeared. Lin felt as if he had passed through a natural barrier and arrived in a brand new ocean. Within the mist, his vision was completely unobstructed, and he could see a vast expanse of ocean that stretched as far as the eye could see. Could it be that I'm looking at a fake turtle head? Lin was a little incredulous. The jade-bone immortal bug didn't understand. She had never been to the moving Heavenly Star Island. As for Tina, she was a complete noob, and she was always curious about where she went. Thus, Lin continued to fly on his brick and wander around aimlessly. When he came across an island, he would ask the leader of the island for directions. Unfortunately, even within the white mist, the moving Heavenly Star Island was still extremely mysterious. On an extremely large island, powerful sea pterodactyls thrived here. These dragons were related to lizard dragons, but their wings were thinner and their bodies were sleeker and more streamlined, thereby minimizing resistance when diving. The most powerful being on the island, Tian Hai, was being ground into the ground by Lin as he wailed with anguish. "Oh, please spare me. Be gentle. Don't do this." The huge sea-winged dragon lay on the ground as its body wriggled in pain. Lin rode atop the dragon's back, and a golden light shone from his fists. "Are you going to tell me or not? Tell me everything you know about the moving Heavenly Star Island." And Lin spoke with a cold smile on his face as he held a mirror in his hand. "That's really all I know," Tian Hai sobbed. "It's lying," the vermilion bird mirror replied in a crisp voice. "Huh." And Lin chuckled coldly as his fist continued to fall. Tian Hai was tormented within an inch of his life, and he was unable to withstand Lin's ferocious attacks. I'll tell you. Tian Hai really couldn't hold on any longer. If things continued like this, he was going to be hammered to death. His life was more important than his oath to the Heavenly Turtle Tribe. At midnight, the direction in which the 9 brightest stars in the night sky are aligned is the direction in which the moving Heavenly Star Island is located. Tian Hai replied, and Lin turned to look at the vermilion bird mirror, which remained silent. The lie detector didn't respond, so it looked like he was telling the truth. He nodded with a satisfied smile. "Brother Tian Hai, you should have told me earlier. If you had, you wouldn't have had to suffer like this." Tian Hai shook his head relentlessly. "I'm the underling, senior. You're the big brother." This dragon was very sensible, so Lin didn't go all out. Instead, he waited for night to fall on the island. During his free time, Lin swallowed the second-grade immortal pill the dark phoenix dead spirit pill. Black winds instantly swept through the entire island, freezing everything in its path. The center of the island seemed to have transformed into an abyssal, demonic mouth that was trying to engulf everything around it. All of the living beings trembled uncontrollably, and none of them dared to make sound. A high-rank immortal pill, with the dark phoenix bone marrow as its main ingredient, was naturally quite powerful. And Lin's flame power increased significantly, and the holy flame vermilion bird in his sea of vital energy also devoured the pill like a whale. A few more black feathers appeared on its tail. After eating its fill, the vermilion bird let loose a crisp cry, as if it was giving feedback to Enlin. The projection of an all-engulfing dark phoenix suddenly appeared in Enlin's mind, imbued with a vast amount of information and intent realm. Enlin's body trembled, and his eyes darkened even further as he let loose an involuntary cry. Tina and the jade-bone immortal bug were given a fright upon seeing this. Thankfully, this didn't last long, and Enlin soon came to his senses before panting heavily. "Are you all right?" Giant Enlin. "Master." The fairy and the butterfly fluttered around Enlin with concerned expressions. Enlin shook his head with undisguised joy on his face. "I'm fine." He looked up at the twinkling stars in the night sky with a faint smile on his face. "Let's go. We've already confirmed the direction we're heading to. Let's go to the moving Heavenly Star Island." Chapter 1031. It was midnight, and the West Sea had fallen into complete darkness and silence. Only the rustling of the waves was still active. Moonlight and a sky full of stars appeared in the sky and on the surface of the ocean, as if they were two inverted mirrors that were intersecting with one another. Enlin raised his head to discover that among the countless stars, the 9 brightest stars seemed to be pointing in a certain direction. However, as the stars shifted, the direction they were pointing in was also changing slightly. This really is a moving island. Enlin smiled. He leaped onto his brick and flew toward the direction the stars were pointing in without any hesitation. The ocean at night was not actually very peaceful. Dangers lurked in the depths of the ocean, and powerful sea monsters would occasionally turn their attention toward Enlin. However, none of them had the guts to attack Enlin. After traveling for over 5,000 kilometers, a sea of light appeared before his eyes. As the name suggested, the Sea of Light was a sea that glowed. This sea of light was extremely colorful and dreamy in the dark night, as if he had arrived in a different country. All of the fish that lived in this sea of light could glow, and they swam in schools, creating a series of dazzling, vibrant, and dazzling images. There were also many things that resembled fireflies that leaped out of the water and breathed in the air with elation. Each and every breath they took was accompanied by a flash of golden light. Wah! A vast and distant voice reverberated between heaven and earth, extremely penetrating. The sound was ethereal and clear, as if it could travel from the past to the future. Enlin immediately halted his flight atop his brick, and his nerves tensed as he unleashed his divine sense to its fullest extent. Tina and the jade-bone immortal bug were also silently preparing their spell techniques, clearly preparing for battle. A being that could emit such a sound was definitely not to be underestimated. Wah! Another sound struck straight into the depths of his soul. A certain spot on the boundless sea of light suddenly became empty. All of the glowing sea creatures retreated, as if they were fearful of something, but also as if they were making way for it. A faint blue light appeared at the bottom of the ocean, and it grew brighter and brighter until it stained the inky black ocean a bright blue. The pure blue overshadowed all of the colors in the sea of light. A gargantuan head slowly emerged from the surface of the ocean, sweeping up massive waves. So big. Tina's mouth gaped open as her eyes widened. And Lynn also took a deep breath. Is that a whale? Its gigantic body began to leap out of the sea, bringing with it hundreds of millions of tons of seawater. The pitch-black night sky, above the sea of light, under the full moon. Its round body glowed with a blue light as it drew an arc in the air, dyeing the night sky blue. This scene seemed to last for eternity. Rumble. The whale once again fell from the sky into the ocean, creating a huge wave. The waves surged and roared. The blue light gradually disappeared into the bottom of the sea, returning to the darkness. Is it gone? The encyclopedic jade bone immortal bug remained silent for the first time in the face of this monster, as she was also completely dumbstruck. Little sister Xiaogu, what kind of creature is that? It's so big and so beautiful. Tina was still in shock, and she asked excitedly. The jade bone immortal bug shook her head. I don't know. There are no descriptions of such a gargantuan glowing creature in any of the books. How about we call it the blue whale? And Lin suggested with excitement in his eyes. Huh, so casual? Tina cocked her head to the side with displeasure. Isn't it better to make it easy to understand? Let's call it Elan. And Lin clapped his hands together. This is a new species. We've discovered a new species. Tina, the jade bone immortal bug. I feel like no one will acknowledge a new species like this. The jade bone immortal bug grumbled. Giant and Lin, what else can we expect apart from naming creatures based on size and color? Tina splayed her hands open in exasperation. And Lin couldn't be bothered to respond to these two fools and turned his attention back to the stars in the sky. He followed the guidance of the stars in the sky and continued onward. The appearance of the blue whale was only an interlude. However, that scene had been deeply engraved into their hearts, and they would never be able to forget it. A certain phrase suddenly occurred to Enlin. Seeing a whale when the sea is blue. This phrase seemed to be quite appropriate in a situation like this. He couldn't see the whale's cultivation base, but he could sense that the passage of time had left an imprint on its body. This was most likely a whale that had lived in the West Sea for countless years. Before they knew it, they had passed through the sea of light. Their surroundings fell into darkness again, with only the stars and the full moon in the sky to keep them company. Enlin continued onward, and a vast expanse of darkness finally appeared at the end of the horizon. Look, there's a group of islands up ahead. That's the moving Heavenly Star Island. That's right. That's indeed our destination. I can see that the island is moving at an extremely slow speed as time passes by. And Lin narrowed his eyes as he expanded his divine sense to its maximum extent to survey his surroundings. As they drew closer and closer, the moving Heavenly Star Island was gradually revealed to them. This was a large expanse of islands of various sizes, and the environments of each island were vastly different. Some islands were covered in lush green grass, some islands were covered in poisonous mist, some islands were covered in ice and frost, and some islands were filled with lava that flowed like rivers. The islands were as different as heaven and earth, but the only similarity was that all of them had Heavenly Turtle Tribe living beings living happily and leisurely on them no matter what environment they were in. These turtles were not picky about where they were. They lazily lay on the island. It was late at night, and some of them were sleeping. Some of them looked up at the sky and silently gazed at the stars, as if they were trying to glean something from them. This wasn't to say that they were unfathomable. Most of them were just bored. The average lifespan of Heavenly Turtle Tribe members was over 1,000 years. Even though they lived for a very long time, there were very few things that they could do. Every day was nothing more than basking in the sun during the day and gazing at the stars at night. This was the idle life of the Heavenly Turtle Tribe members. They didn't like to fight, and they wasted their time every day. Occasionally, they would research some strange things. For example, astrology, fortune-telling, and Lin flew over one island after another atop his brick and concealed his aura. The relationship between the human race and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe wasn't actually very friendly. The Heavenly Turtle Tribe and the Eastern Dragon Tribe were at odds, and the Eastern Dragon Tribe was on good terms with the Celestial Court. Hence, the human race and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe viewed each other as enemies in the ancient Tai Chu realm. Of course, there was no vendetta between the two tribes, and Lin concealed his aura only to avoid unnecessary trouble. He didn't want to provoke some resentful turtles, which was an arduous and unrewarding task. The moving Heavenly Star Islands could also be referred to as the moving Heavenly Star Islands. There were all types of islands scattered all over the place, and there was no end in sight. And Lin flew toward the central region of the islands, atop his brick. Generally speaking, all the bad asterisk SS turtles lived in the central region, so this should be the right choice. Not long after that, a gargantuan green island appeared in his field of vision. Not only were there beaches and forests on the island, but there were also tall mountains, waterfalls, and rivers. What was even more astonishing was that there was a golden rainbow stretching across the two ends of the island under the moonlight. At the center of the golden rainbow was an antiquated bluestone palace. I've decided you're the one. And Lin looked at the palace and spoke. Chapter 1032. A white light flashed past in Lin's eyes, and he saw an extremely complex and massive spell formation. When it smiled, its thick lips curved into a crescent arc, and its dark face revealed a devilish smile. There were all types of strange objects within the palace, including all types of tools for divination, copper coins, peculiar oracle bones, and so on. At the very center of the palace was a huge turtle lying lazily on the ground. Perhaps Senior Turtle has some kind of problem? The J-Bone Immortal Bug suggested. The owner of the palace was most likely quite powerful. Huh? Aren't we going to wake Senior Turtle up? Tina asked in a sweet voice. The turtle's snoring reverberated throughout the palace. The longer one lived, the more stars one could look at. If one could look at the stars for tens of thousands of years, they would at least be able to see something, right? Unless it was an idiot. This was like a pillow delivered to them by drowsiness. And Lin stared at the scenes unfolding before him with a confused expression. A determined expression appeared on his face as he led the way. If Lin showed the star trajectory chart to the owner of the palace, he should be able to understand it. The two girls expressed their thoughts without fear at all. Right at this moment, the space around them suddenly tremored. A suffocating aura was awakening. Tina patted her own cheeks with a surprised expression on her face. My God, Senior Turtle really did fall asleep. Giant and Lin, there's a restriction spell formation around the palace, Tina suddenly said. He turned around and led Tina and the J-Bone Immortal Bug out of the palace. The huge turtle's four limbs were already extended, and its mouth was wide open to reveal a row of sharp teeth as a terrifying power converged. He was just about to retreat and change targets. After all, the higher the cultivation base of a turtle, the longer it would live. Then why did you let us in, Senior? And Lin looked at the turtle with a curious expression. The turtle nodded before suddenly extending its neck, and its huge head almost pressed itself against Lin's face as an ethereal aura swept toward him like clouds and mist. This was the first time he had seen a turtle fall asleep at the drop of a hat. And Lin's face convulsed slightly. What's up with this weird tone? Who is destined to be with you? However, this mighty being had taken the initiative to offer to tell Lin's fortune. This made Lin feel a little uneasy. When it saw Lin, it pursed its lips and revealed a very human-like smile. It said in a gentle and leisurely voice, Welcome, friend from afar. Come, let's go meet it. And Lin, let's go. The J-Bone Immortal Bug spoke in a feeble voice. If it really wanted to do something to us, it could have just attacked us. There's no need for all this. Could it be that Senior Turtle is asleep? Tina speculated. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but our meeting here is actually a matter of fate, the tortoise slowly said. As if sensing Lin's concerns, it smiled and said, How about this? I'll help you calculate your past first. If I'm not accurate, I'll promise to do something for you. What do you think? Something difficult to say? And Lin blinked before turning to look at the massive tortoise shell in the distance. Its snores were still as loud as ever. And Lin was a little dazed upon seeing this miraculous transformation. And Lin was dumbstruck upon seeing the hole in the shell. He then used his divine sense to investigate the tortoise's condition and discovered that the tortoise shell seemed to be able to isolate his divine sense. Divination? The tortoise suddenly closed its eyes, as if it was reminiscing something, and its head also slowly retracted into the shell. And Lin, the main spell formation only had a radius of over 1,000 feet, and it encompassed the entire palace. However, the subspell formations used the main spell formation as a foundation, and they continued to extend until they encompassed the entire island. And Lin's heart stirred slightly. The Heavenly Turtle tribe loved to read the stars, and they also loved to tell the fortunes of other living beings. This was a well-known fact, and it was very normal. The tortoise looked at Lin. All right, I won't tease you anymore. It is fate that we met here, so why don't I tell your fortune in person? What do you think, my friend? And Lin's lips twitched. What was with the tortoise falling asleep at the slightest provocation? 10 minutes later, in the Heavenly Turtle tribe, one's cultivation base and astrology skills were directly proportional. And Lin's eyes lit up, and he nodded. All right, senior. And Lin's eyes widened. It was telling my fortune a second ago, and it's falling asleep the next second? What a joke. Besides, we're still in its home. Does it not care about us anymore? The tortoise's eyes were blue, and countless tiny symbols suddenly appeared on its surface. They quickly rotated, separated, and combined, as if they were a calculator that could calculate all things in the world. And Lin was a little confused as he stood in place and waited. At this moment, an opening suddenly appeared in the restriction spell formation, an opening that allowed him to enter. The palace was extremely silent, and the tortoise shell still didn't react. Why did it suddenly retract? And Lin turned around, and his pupils contracted drastically. The entire palace fell silent, and only the round tortoise shell remained. However, that thing was too dangerous, so he hadn't used it much lately. If Lin chickened out, then he really wouldn't be a man anymore. Snore. Whoosh, no one responded. No tortoise responded. Tina and the jade bone immortal bug. The huge tortoise looked quite ferocious, but who would have thought that its voice would be so gentle? Snore. Whoosh, and Lin's expression remained unchanged. Instead, he looked at the tortoise with an intrigued expression. And Lin, Tina, and the jade bone immortal bug looked at one another. Didn't I let you in because you wanted to come in first? The tortoise chuckled. At the center of the golden rainbow, there was a bluestone palace high up in the sky. Boom. He actually had a very bad asterisk SS divination technique, known as the divine simulation technique, which was of a higher level than the one used by the tortoise. Not only that, but even its limbs had retracted back into its shell. And Lin chuckled coldly. Why do we have to wake it up? If it likes to sleep, then let's sleep. We'll just look for the next one. It's not like we have to look for it. And Lin took a deep breath. The owner of this palace is someone we can't afford to mess with. This kind of behavior made his scalp tingle, and he really didn't want to stay here. Senior? And Lin couldn't help but ask. Senior is inviting us in for some tea. Should we come in or not? And Lin asked. They passed through the opening in the spell formation and stepped through the gate of the Bluestone Palace. Was he inviting them in? Let's go. And Lin felt like he had been played, and he immediately made his way toward the gate. Greetings, Senior. Please forgive us for approaching your territory without your permission. And Lin extended a respectful salute. He was just wondering how he could get this tortoise-mighty figure to help him research the star trajectory map, and this was an opportunity for him to do so. No matter how he looked at it, it was very intimidating. Besides, this is our first time here, and Giant and Lin has no vendetta against it, so there's no need to be afraid, Tina chimed in. Chapter 1033. The turtle opened its cavernous mouth, from which a terrifying power erupted forth. And Lin, Tina, and the jade bone immortal bug all prepared for battle at the same time. The energy fluctuations emanating from the turtle's body were simply too terrifying. A yawn that went from low to high, and then from high to low rang out. The huge turtle yawned and opened its bleary eyes. It was a little confused at the sight of Lin and the others before a thought seemed to have occurred to it. Oh, you're... The tortoise stretched out the word yes and couldn't say anything else. And Lin looked at the turtle expressionlessly. I'm here to get my fortune told. No, you're the one who insisted on telling my fortune. Have you forgotten? The turtle suddenly slapped its own head as if a thought had occurred to it. Oh, right. I remember now. That's right. I'm telling your fortune. And Lin's expression darkened. Did this turtle have dementia? Or was it a goldfish that could forget everything in just a few seconds? So, Senior, what did you tell me? And Lin mustered up his courage and asked. A thoughtful expression appeared on the turtle's face. After a moment of silence, it turned to Enlin again, and countless black symbols suddenly appeared in its eyes. And Lin was astonished. What the F***CK? You're telling my fortune again in secret? As expected, did he really forget about it before? How terrifying. And Lin was struck by a sense of unreliability toward this turtle mighty figure for the first time. Turtle was the epitome of stability, but the turtle before him clearly didn't fit that description. After telling his fortune, the turtle slowly closed its eyes before retracting its head back into its shell. Holy F***CK! Seeing this familiar scene, and Lin immediately unleashed a mountain-quaking fist without any hesitation. Boom! Howl! The turtle's retracted head was smashed to the side by the fist, and it let loose a wail of anguish. It opened its eyes with shock on its face. Why did you hit me? You're trying to go back into your shell again. Who am I supposed to hit if not you? And Lin flared up with rage. The big turtle felt wronged. I just want to close my eyes and organize my thoughts. Is that so? And Lin was a little embarrassed. Then go ahead. The big turtle sighed. My train of thought has been messed up by you. What am I supposed to do? And Lin, for some reason, and Lin felt like he had been tricked again. Seeing in Lin's expression, the big turtle hurriedly explained, although my thoughts are a little chaotic, I can still tell you what I have foreseen. Let's start with your past. The big turtle's gaze became distant. Your past is very magnificent. When Lin heard this, he nodded. His experiences in the past few years were indeed magnificent. The tortoise continued. Your progress in cultivation has been quite spectacular, and Lin nodded. Doing push-ups, being struck by lightning, eating rock golem secretions, challenging cultivators of higher rank, eating beast cores, transcending a small lightning tribulation to summon a golden void lightning Kirin. The tortoise, your love life has also been quite spectacular. And Lin, can't you use another word? And Lin spoke with difficulty. Isn't it spectacular? The tortoise retorted. And Lin's lips twitched. He had no retort. The tortoise, your money-making experience has also been quite spectacular. And Lin chuckled. The tortoise cocked its head to the side. Am I wrong? And Lin took a deep breath and clenched his fists. Do you know what I want to do now? The big turtle blinked and asked what? And Lin chuckled coldly. F***CKU. Boom, boom, boom. He unleashed his mountain-quaking fist. The tortoise's head was ravaged by Lin. What did I say wrong? Why are you hitting me? The huge turtle glowered at Lin with an enraged expression. And Lin's fists glowed with golden light, and he chuckled coldly. You didn't say anything wrong. I just want to let you know that my fights are spectacular too. The tortoise, I won't use the word spectacular anymore, the tortoise said with difficulty. And Lin nodded with satisfaction upon hearing this. He extended his hand and made an inviting gesture. Please continue with your performance. The tortoise wagged its head. Your beast pet taming journey has also been quite turbulent. And Lin was astonished. Was this the tortoise's resolution? The magnificent waves had turned into raging waves? The veins on Lin's forehead bulged, and he repressed the urge to beat the tortoise up before turning to leave. Hey, little friend, why are you leaving? The big turtle panicked upon seeing this, and it hurriedly urged him to stay. And Lin replied without even turning his head. I'll walk my own path, and you can have your fun. We'll mind our own business. My friend, I know you have something to ask of me. I'll agree to it, all right? The tortoise asked in a panicked voice. And Lin's footsteps faltered, and he looked at the tortoise with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Free fortune-telling, free errands for him. There was something fishy about this situation, no matter how he thought about it. As the saying went, those who were unaccountably solicitous were hiding evil intentions. Just what was this tortoise after? I know what you're worried about, and Lin. The tortoise suddenly smiled. I'm not doing this for you just because we're fated to meet. In reality, I've already predicted a long time ago that I would meet someone who could decide the fate of the heavenly turtle tribe. Hence, Helping you is the same as helping my tribe. The big turtle shook its head as it explained in a slow voice. Hence, I'll help you with that matter, and you'll help us when the heavenly turtle tribe is in danger. Wouldn't that be a win-win situation? Oh, so that's how it is. And Lin came to a sudden realization, and he nodded before joining his hands in a salute toward the old tortoise. My apologies for disturbing you. Farewell. He began to walk even faster as he spoke. Hey, my friend, why are you still leaving? Did I not explain myself clearly enough? The tortoise extended a claw and urged Lin to stay. No, your explanation was very clear. It's just that, and Lin's lips twitched slightly. I only wanted you to help me look at a map, and you King want me to get involved with the fate of the heavenly turtle tribe? This is like saying that I only want to buy a mouse pad, and you can give it to me, but I have to go save the world with you. Are you kidding me? The tortoise was a little dazed. What's a mouse pad? And Lin's expression darkened. That's not the point. I can't mess with them, but I can at least hide from them. Farewell. Please wait, my friend. I understand what you're trying to say. The tortoise said, however, you have no choice but to cooperate with me this time. I am the high priest of the heavenly turtle tribe. And Lin's footsteps faltered. There were over 100 priests in the heavenly turtle tribe, but there was only one who could become the high priest, and that was High Priest Guyu of the heavenly turtle tribe. His status was extremely transcendent, and it could even be said that he was the spiritual leader of the heavenly turtle tribe. And Lin turned around with incredulity on his face. He didn't think that he would encounter a legendary figure in the heavenly turtle tribe. That's right. I am High Priest Guyu. The tortoise looked at Lin with a serious expression. I have no choice but to cooperate with me. Otherwise, you will die. Chapter 1034. And Lin's eyes widened. I'm going to die. If any other fortune teller were to tell Lin that he was going to die if he didn't hand over the money, Lin would definitely reward that fortune teller with a mountain-quaking fist without any hesitation. However, hearing this from High Priest Guyu of the heavenly turtle tribe made him quite wary. That's right, you're going to die. You're going to be killed by the Spirit Fish clan. Guyu nodded, and Lin's brows furrowed slightly. Even though he had a vendetta against the Spirit Fish clan, only a Dao integration stage super mighty figure would be able to kill him. Would the Spirit Fish clan dare to do that? Guyu spoke in a slow voice. I can only deduce the scenario where you don't want to cooperate with me. Of course, if you cooperate with me, I can guarantee your survival. I know what you want me to help you with. That's the only thing that's connected to the fate of the heavenly turtle tribe. There are actually quite a few living beings in the heavenly turtle tribe who can understand your map. However, I'm the only one who can guarantee your survival and provide you with a massive opportunity. Guyu's voice was filled with extreme confidence as he looked at Lin with a calm expression. Lin stroked his chin. What should I do in order to trust you? I can swear an oath to the ocean, to the stars in the sky, and to all of my tribe members. Guyu looked at Lin before adding, don't think too much about it. I only chose to cooperate with you for the sake of the heavenly turtle tribe. And Lin nodded. This was a plausible reason. He turned to Guyu with a polite expression. Please continue. A smile appeared on Guyu's face. You came to find me for a certain mysterious star map, right? I know where that place is. In reality, the map in your hand is not just a map. It's also a key. A key. And Lin's heart jolted slightly upon hearing this. That's right. It's the key to the fallen god's seabed tomb. Only with it will you have the right to enter the fallen god's seabed tomb, and only beings below the return to void stage can enter. Originally, I could have taken a map from you by force and let the soul formation cultivators of my clan enter that tomb. However, after some divination, I discovered that only you can truly change the fate of the heavenly turtle tribe. So I chose to help you, Guyu said. And Lin's face twitched slightly. You're quite honest. A gentle smile appeared on Guyu's face. Honesty is my greatest weakness. The huge turtle continued. Oh, right. A powerful being from the Spirit Fish clan will also be entering this place. It will be your greatest opponent, so you have to be careful. And Lin chuckled. A soul formation cultivator is telling me to be careful. You're insulting me. Guyu. Little friend, I think you're a little too full of yourself. I'm not bragging, but even if a return to void stage mighty figure can enter, I'll still be able to crush them. And Lin was brimming with confidence. Guyu, you sure are arrogant. And Lin didn't dwell on this topic for too long. You said powerful beings from the Spirit Fish clan also entered this place. So the Spirit Fish clan also has a key? There are 2 keys? Guyu nodded with a meaningful expression. That's right. The fallen god seabed tomb is the tomb of an ancient mighty figure. Are you interested in learning more about the forbidden love between the high priest of the heavenly turtle tribe and the high priest of the Spirit Fish clan? A love between a turtle and a mermaid? That's insane. And Lin was slightly astonished. I'm not interested. Get straight to the point. Guyu's eyes widened. It was just about to talk about their legendary love, but Lin wasn't listening. The point. Guyu thought to himself for a moment before saying, be careful when entering the tomb. Lin, is there nothing you want to tell me? For example, what to look out for? What's in the tomb? Lin flared up with rage. Prior to their deaths, the high priests of the 2 tribes buried their past glory as well as their insights into fate in the fallen god seabed tomb and left the keys to their descendants. When the time is right, their descendants will be able to open the tomb. Guyu looked up into the sky. I've been observing the stars day and night and sensing the changes in this world. I know that now is the best time to open the tomb. After entering the tomb, you don't have to do anything special. Just do your best to reap the most benefits. If there's a treasure, take it. If there's a cultivation method, take it. Don't hold back. And Lin was astonished. What a thoughtful request. In reality, he would have done this even without the big turtle's instructions. After that, if you encounter any text or images that you don't understand, I hope you could take pictures of them. They may contain some important information, and I hope you can pass them to our heavenly turtle tribe, Guyu said. And Lin nodded. No problem. Guyu spat out a rhombus-shaped black crystal. Wear this. It can save your life during a dire situation. This is also why I said that if you cooperate with me, I can save your life. What is this? And Lin asked as he carried the rhombus-shaped black crystal with him. I can't tell you. It won't work if I tell you. Guyu shook its head. And Lin, did all fortune tellers like to pretend to be so profound? Was it because they couldn't show off their skills if they didn't pretend to be profound? And Lin heaved a forlorn sigh and didn't dwell on this topic any longer. Everything seemed to be connecting the dots. The Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni's wedding, Chun Hao's map key, soul formation stage powerful beings. Thinking about it that way, they should have sent Chun Nan and Lan Xiaoni to enter the tomb, right? But now Lin had cut them off. The Black Fox tribe couldn't do anything even if they were angry. Their big boss had already been killed by Lin. However, the Spirit Fish clan would definitely be very angry as well. If they saw Lin heading toward that place with the map key, a fierce battle would ensue. I'll take you there myself. As long as you're outside of the fallen god seabed tomb, no one will be able to harm you. Guyu promised. These words dispelled Lin's concerns. Swear it. Lin said, Guyu, I swear to the ocean, to the stars in the sky, and to my brethren after making a series of vows. Guyu extended its head and abruptly tore open a spatial rift. I'll take you to the fallen god's seabed tomb. Lin was surprised. You know the way without looking at the map? He hadn't even pulled out the map yet, and the turtle was already offering to lead the way? Was it really that bad? SS? You think that place is a secret to a high priest like me? The only use for that thing is that it's the key to the tomb, Guyu chuckled. At the bottom of the West Sea, ocean currents surged violently here, and lightning clouds gathered. Terrifying bolts of lightning fell relentlessly from the sky, roaring and roaring as they struck the surface of the sea. A woman sat on a massive seashell, looking on at the surging sea and the sky. Her lower body was that of a blue fish, while her upper body was that of a human. Her features were exquisitely beautiful, and her skin was as pristine and fair as jade. Her chest was snowy and voluptuous, and it was wrapped in a blue ribbon. Her slender waist and flawless back were exposed, creating a very pleasing sight to behold. Her features and figure could satisfy anyone's fantasies of a mermaid. The mermaid cast her gaze into the distance with scorching battle intent burning in her blue eyes. "High Priest, who do you think my opponent will be?" The mermaid asked. "It doesn't matter who it is. Lan Xiaoni, just don't forget your mission." A ball of indistinct liquid hovered beside the mermaid as it replied. It didn't reveal its true body. Perhaps it felt like it wasn't time yet. A confident smile appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face as she licked her soft, pink lips. "That's right. No matter who it is, I'll make them experience true despair." Chapter 1035. She was so frightened that she couldn't help but scream, "Ah!" And this was a hack king. In any case, let's not waste any more time and go on our way. Don't let down the hard work of your father, brother, and brother. Don't disappoint the Spirit Fish clan. What the F***CK was this? This was insane. Could he at least wipe away the tears on his face before saying that? Immediately afterward, the space around him began to crack open. Under normal circumstances, she wouldn't even dare to say anything in the face of a legendary figure like this. And Lin placed his map on top of the shell, while Lan Xiaoni's map was on the bottom. Gotcha! It was now seriously doubting its own divination. There was a problem with it. Lan Xiaoni swallowed as she looked at the man flying toward her, and her breathing became a lot softer and gentler. This was an instinctive reaction that even she didn't realize she was doing. Lan Xiaoni sat on the shell and patiently waited for her destined opponent. And Lin patted Gu Yu's head with a smile upon seeing Lan Xiaoni's mental breakdown. "Senior Turtle, do you see that? The Spirit Fish clan powerful being you're talking about, my biggest opponent, has already been defeated. Victory belonged to the Spirit Fish clan." Lan Xiaoni faltered slightly upon hearing this, before turning to Gu Yu with gratitude in her eyes. All of a sudden, a voice sounded from within the spatial passageway. Lan Xiaoni's body shuddered upon seeing and Lin's smile, and her face instantly paled. He turned to Lan Xiaoni with encouragement in his eyes as he yelled in his heart, "Hurry up and show some of the power you should have as in Lin's nemesis." "How could it be you?" "Lin." Lan Xiaoni drew a sharp intake of breath as her nerves became even more tense upon seeing the giant turtle's true appearance. This was the high priest of the heavenly turtle tribe, Gu Yu. Lan Xiaoni nodded obediently with an extremely strong will to live. With her aptitude and power, she could look down on all soul formation stage powerful beings, and even Chunnan was no match for her. No matter who it was, they were all trash to her. That's right. She had thought that her opponent would be a bronze rank being, but it was a king. Yu Feiyu. The poor girl was stammering from fear. All she had to do was torture the living being who had entered the tomb with her. And Lin had heard this from Gu Yu once. Lan Xiaoni had a mental breakdown. Never would she have thought that her opponent would be this man. The big turtle was so frustrated. Couldn't the Spirit Fish clan powerful beings give it some face and show it some respect? But now, she had the high priest of the Spirit Fish clan Yu Feiyu by her side. She looked young and helpless, but she could still cry, "Oh my God, it's fate." Yu Feiyu and Gu Yu were on the same level as Gu Yu. Furthermore, Lan Xiaoni's expression wasn't an act. Gu Yu was quite perplexed. It had clearly divined that Lin's opponent was extremely threatening. Why was it that the current scene was like a newbie meeting a big shot? There was no comparison at all. A teammate who cheers on the enemy? Air. You. I. 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 Yu Feiyu spoke in an emotionless voice. "High Priest, is this the opponent you said I have a chance of beating?" Yu Feiyu spoke in a cold and emotionless voice. And Lin flew toward Lan Xiaoni. The huge turtle slowly crawled out from the tomb, and even though it wasn't releasing any aura, Lan Xiaoni's heart began to pound with anxiety. And Lin couldn't shake the feeling that Gu Yu was a fake high priest. The huge turtle had been telling her how bad *SS her opponent was, But in the end, she was just a weakling. That's right, this wasn't going to be the deciding factor. Instead, it was going to be the fallen god's seabed tomb. After all, she was just a spoiled princess, so she didn't have the guts to fight a powerful being who could even thrash a return of void stage mighty figure. Lan Xiaoni, don't forget that you are a direct descendant of the Spirit Fish clan. You have been acknowledged by the ancestors to enter the tomb, but your opponent is a human. My divination can't be wrong. You have a very good chance of winning. Trust me, go. Yu Feiyu's voice was ethereal and emotionless, and Lin stared at Gu Yu with astonishment on his face. Gu Yu, tears welled up in Lan Xiaoni's eyes, and she was clearly about to burst into tears. With this in mind, the smile on her face widened. She also felt that the person beside her was a fake high priestess. What do you mean by chances of winning? Tell me, how are you going to win? It had no choice. Her opponent was far too weak, and it couldn't bear to watch on. Gu Yu couldn't allow its illustrious reputation to be ruined by a Spirit Fish Clan Jr. The huge turtle couldn't help but speak. Princess of the Spirit Fish Clan, don't forget that the two keys have to be together in order to open the fallen god seabed tomb. After the owners of the keys enter the fallen god seabed tomb, if one of them dies, the other will be attacked by the tomb's restrictions. Hence, your life won't be in danger. After what seemed like an eternity, Lan Xiaoni gritted her teeth and looked up at Enlin. She seemed to have mustered up all of her courage as she spoke in a trembling voice. Enlin, don't think I'm scared of you. Let's just wait and see. A crisp sound echoed in the air. Lan Xiaoni puffed out her chest with this in mind, and she felt a lot more confident. Gu Yu, princess, you're the representative of the younger generation of the Spirit Fish clan. Show some boldness. Besides, she still had that. Lan Xiaoni took a deep breath before pulling out a map from her storage ring. Come here, we're going to put our maps together to open the passageway to the tomb. Heaven and earth instantly fell silent after the maps were combined. Lan Xiaoni, who would have thought that the keys would fall into the hands of the heavenly turtle tribe again? A faint smile appeared on Lan Xiaoni's face, as if she didn't care. Who in your heavenly turtle tribe can fight me? Oh my, she's not going to be my opponent, is she? She was a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage with exceptional aptitude, top-rate cultivation methods, countless mystic techniques, and many trump cards bestowed upon her by her seniors. Who could fight against her? Lan Xiaoni unfurled the map and spoke in a feeble voice. She was willing to sacrifice her life to save someone for the love that she had once thought was the most beautiful thing in the world. However, under normal circumstances, she was still quite a coward. That was indeed the case. She had been too scared by Enlin and had almost forgotten about this. Was it a competition of breasts? Lan Xiaoni was very confident. Her opponent appeared, and he seemed to be very excited. Maps could be refined, and when the two maps were combined, the owner of the map would have the right to enter the tomb. For the first time, Lan Xiaoni was struck by the same feeling as Enlin. Oi, I know Enlin is very scary, but there's no need to be this cowardly, is there? Lan Xiaoni turned toward the spatial gate, and her pupils gradually contracted as her mouth gaped open. A series of traumatizing scenes began to surface in her mind. The two maps overlapped, as if the reflection of the sky and the sea had been connected. Enlin's brows furrowed slightly. This you put on the bottom, and I'll put on the top. All right, I'll be on the top, and you'll be on the bottom, Enlin replied in a cold voice. A massive spatial passageway appeared not far away from Lan Xiaoni. Gu Yu raised its head and stared into the distance with an unfathomable expression. Chapter 1036. The surging waves on the ocean instantly became sluggish. The dark clouds, lightning, and thunder in the sky also seemed to have been frozen in place. Everything became completely still. Only the two sides of the map began to unravel before a white pillar of light pierced through heaven and earth and into the center of the ocean. Boom! The pillar of light surged through the ocean for over 500 kilometers. A gargantuan vortex began to appear on the ocean. Let's go. And Lin bade farewell to Tina and the Jade Bone Immortal Bug before flying toward the center of the vortex. Lan Xiaoni gritted her teeth and silently followed behind Enlin. Even though the path ahead was filled with despair, She was the representative of the Spirit Fish clan and had the future of the entire clan on her shoulders, so she still had to fight with all her might. The two of them entered the white pillar of light and continued onward toward the bottom of the ocean. As they went deeper, the turbulent currents created by the vortex gradually dissipated, leaving only silence and darkness. If it weren't for the pillar of light, they wouldn't even be able to see the sea creatures around them. Their surroundings fell silent, and the sound of flowing water also gradually disappeared. Lan Xiaoni pursed her lips as she looked at the man before her, and she surreptitiously swallowed as a timid expression appeared on her face. She was racking her brain for a way to escape Lin's clutches after entering the tomb. After descending for what seemed like an eternity, they finally reached the bottom of the ocean, and Lin looked up into the distance, and he could just make out a tightly shut blue gate at the bottom of the ocean. Its surface was extremely smooth and clean. It hadn't been damaged in the slightest by the passage of time. That should be the entrance. And Lin nodded before making his way out of the pillar of light and toward the gate of the tomb. Lan Xiaoni trailed along behind him in silence. She prayed in her heart that this mighty figure would completely ignore her and ignore her. However, Lin suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Lan Xiaoni. Lan Xiaoni's body trembled slightly as she averted her gaze. What is it? You going first? And Lin instructed. Lan Xiaoni's eyes widened with rage, but she felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head at the sight of Lin's cold eyes, and her heart froze. How could you do this? The mermaid princess was extremely aggrieved, and tears welled up in her eyes. She knew that she had been used as cannon fodder by Lin to scout ahead. She was the princess of the Spirit Fish clan and the beloved daughter of the clan leader, Lan Xingyang. When had she ever been bullied like this? She couldn't give in. Even if it meant risking the dignity of the Spirit Fish clan, she couldn't compromise like this. Stop wasting time. Hurry up and go. And Lin shouted. Oh, all right. Lan Xiaoni bit down on her thin lips and walked in front of Lin with her head lowered. Endure for a moment and be tranquil. Take a step back and you'll see the world. For the future of the Spirit Fish clan, she was willing to endure humiliation. Lan Xiaoni made her way over to the gate and pressed her hands against it in an attempt to push it open. To her surprise, the gate was like an indestructible wall, and she was unable to push it open no matter how hard she tried. Lan Xiaoni's brows furrowed slightly, and she was just about to try something else when the fish head and turtle head beside the gate sprang into action at the same time. They looked directly at Lan Xiaoni and opened their mouths as a burst of terrifying spatial power swept toward her. Lan Xiaoni screamed before instantly disappearing on the spot. Lin was dumbstruck. Had she entered an ancient tomb? Speaking of which, if they could teleport into an ancient tomb, then what was the point of having a gate here? Just as he was hesitating about whether he should stand in front of the gate like Lan Xiaoni, the fish head and turtle head seemed to have sensed something, and they turned toward Lin before opening their mouths. Holy F***CK. Lin let loose a cry of surprise as he was struck by a rush of dizziness. The space around him began to warp violently. His eyes regained clarity, and he discovered that he had arrived in a strange world. The sky was murky, and there was a light enshrouding the entire earth. Countless ancient swords were stabbed into the ground as far as the eye could see. A sense of sharpness, desolation enshrouded the entire space around them. Infinite sword technique. Lin's eyes lit up with excitement. He could sense that each and every ancient sword had its own history, as well as its own battles and blood. When countless ancient swords were gathered together, the accumulated sword intent could even pierce through the heavens. Boom, boom, boom. Powerful energy fluctuations erupted from nearby, and Lin looked up to discover that Lan Xiaoni was flying toward a certain direction while unleashing one extremely powerful spell technique after another. Countless ancient swords rose into the sky from the ground before attacking Lan Xiaoni. The powerful power of water clashed with the ancient swords, upon which an earth-shattering boom erupted. What is she fighting? and Lin faltered momentarily before turning toward the direction that Lan Xiaoni was flying toward, and his eyes gradually lit up. Lan Xiaoni's fishtail whipped through the air, and each and every one of her leaps sent ripples surging through the air. Her body sped through the air as if she were swimming through water. All of the ancient swords seemed to have been stimulated, and they slashed toward Lan Xiaoni with astonishing sword intent. Lan Xiaoni twisted her agile waist to evade the flying swords, and if she couldn't evade them, she would slap them aside with her hands, which were imbued with the extremely powerful power of water. I'm almost there. These flying swords are extremely powerful, but I can still just barely keep them at bay. Just a few more meters, and that necklace will be mine. Lan Xiaoni turned toward a huge, ancient sword with a scorching light in her eyes. There was a blue necklace tied to the hilt of the ancient sword. Boom! Right at this moment, an extremely fearsome burst of energy swept toward her from behind. Ah! Lan Xiaoni screamed as she hurriedly evaded. At this moment, the figure had already passed Lan Xiaoni and was leading the way. Countless flying swords trailed behind the figure. The man turned around before slapping a palm toward the flying swords with enough force to twist the space around him. Bam, bam, bam. All of the flying swords exploded. What kind of trash swords are these? None of them are worth fighting. The man harumphed coldly before making his way toward the huge ancient sword. He picked up the necklace and stowed it away into his storage ring. Lan Xiaoni and Lin nodded with contentment, only to discover that Lan Xiaoni was looking at him. Why are you glaring at me? And Lin furrowed his brows. Nothing. Lan Xiaoni shook her head in denial. Even her chest shook along with her as she forcibly repressed the grief and rage in her heart. He was robbing her so openly, and he didn't even feel the slightest hint of guilt after doing so. If this were the past, Lan Xiaoni would definitely slice a man like this into pieces. Don't glare at me for no reason. Otherwise, I'm going to think that I've done something infuriating, and Lin said in a meaningful and heartfelt voice. Lan Xiaoni was astonished. Don't you know what you've done? After putting away the necklace, the ancient swords around them fell silent again. And Lin looked around with a perplexed expression, but he couldn't find anything special. Only then did he turn to Lan Xiaoni with a sinister smile on his face. Chapter 10:37. What are you doing? Lan Xiaoni wrapped her arms tightly around herself at the sight of the sinister smile on Lin's face, and she backed away in a fearful manner. You discovered the treasure so quickly. Tell me the truth. Do you know anything about the fallen god seabed tomb? And Lin interrogated in a stern voice. Lan Xiaoni immediately shook her head. No, I know nothing about this ancient tomb. I just happened to see that treasure, so I want to take it. And Lin looked at the mirror in his hand to find that the vermilion bird mirror hadn't said anything, which meant that Lan Xiaoni was telling the truth. This was actually quite normal. After all, this was the first time the tomb had been opened, so no one knew what was inside. They could only speculate based on the final words of the two deceased seniors. All right, then be careful and don't die. And Lin nodded before turning his gaze elsewhere. Lan Xiaoni's expression was frosty, and she didn't say anything. She knew that Lin wasn't saying this out of concern for her. If she died, the restrictions in the tomb would view Lin as an enemy and attack Lin. Hence, Lin was saying this purely for his own sake. Sigh, if only Chun Nan was here. He would definitely protect her. Lan Xiaoni was feeling a little disconsolate. She was starting to miss her fiancé who was so close to getting married. However, the image of Chun Nan fleeing without any hesitation flashed through her mind again. Wah, heartless bastard. You're so handsome, but you're not reliable at all. Lan Xiaoni couldn't help but burst into tears again. She hadn't interacted much with Chun Nan, and there was a reason for her engagement, but her heart had already been captivated by Chun Nan's looks. Was someone who was obsessed with looks not worthy of love? And Lin turned toward the sobbing mermaid and spoke in a cold voice. Aside from the fact that I'm handsome, everything else you've said is slander. Lan Xiaoni wiped her tears away with a dazed expression. I wasn't talking about you. I'm not handsome. And Lin raised his voice as killing intent suddenly erupted. Handsome? You're very handsome. Lan Xiaoni's body stiffened upon hearing this. Woman, don't always cry in the future, it's annoying. And Lin said in an extremely overbearing manner. Lan Xiaoni lowered her head and interlaced her fingers together. Yes. And Lin nodded in satisfaction and took the lead. Follow me, I'll protect you. Yes. Lan Xiaoni nodded instinctively. But in next to no time, she recovered from her shock, and her pair of dark blue eyes stared blankly at the figure that was moving forward without end. She thought with slight disbelief. He said he would protect me? And Lin's original plan was to have Lan Xiaoni lead the way as cannon fodder. However, he was worried that Lan Xiaoni would be too weak and accidentally fall into the trap. In that case, he would become the enemy of the entire tomb, and that would be even worse. After careful consideration, he decided to let Lan Xiaoni tag along with him. And Lin continued onward atop his brick as he unleashed his divine sense in a frenzy, enveloping the entire area. There's nothing else here. Let's continue. After flying for a while, and Lin's brows furrowed slightly. The vastness of this place had far exceeded his imagination. He looked around to find that there were still countless ancient swords embedded into the ground. That's strange. He suddenly slowed down. Lan Xiaoni was caught off guard and almost crashed into Lin's back, upon which her heart skipped a beat. What's wrong? The mermaid princess was a little nervous as she looked around with her dark blue eyes, thinking that they had fallen into some kind of trap. Where did the Spirit Fish clan and the Heavenly Turtle tribe get so many swords? And Lin was a little perplexed. Lan Xiaoni, I've been so nervous for so long. And this is what you're telling me? And Lin continued. Even if these ancient swords are very brittle and don't look like they're worth much, it would still take an immeasurable amount of manpower and resources to create so many swords. What are these swords for? There's no need to do this at all. Is it just to create a grand spectacle? Lan Xiaoni faltered slightly upon hearing this. His words did make sense. This was a scene that she was used to, but there were a lot of loopholes in it. At first glance, there didn't seem to be anything wrong with creating a grand spectacle. However, they had been walking for so long, yet they still couldn't reach the end. This was a little too strange. It was like building a small garden in front of a mansion. That was very stylish and elegant. But building a forest in front of the mansion? That would be insane. And Lin suddenly thought of that blue necklace. He had only wanted to take the necklace with him so that he could take it back and play with it. However, now that he thought about it, Lan Xiaoni's attempt to take the necklace with him had triggered a reaction from the ancient swords. Perhaps the two were connected? And Lin pulled out the blue necklace from his storage ring. All of the surrounding ancient swords suddenly rose into the sky as if they were being drawn by something. Flying swords rained down upon Lin with fearsome might. Lan Xiaoni's expression shifted drastically, and she was just about to unleash a spell technique to defend herself when she suddenly heard a cold harumph. Boom! Purple divine flames erupted, enshrouding the two of them as the terrifying temperatures caused the air to warp and twist and the earth to melt. The flying swords crashed into the wall of flames, only to be vaporized into wisps of smoke by the scorching temperatures. None of them were able to penetrate the wall. Lan Xiaoni stopped and turned to look at Lin, only to be greeted by the sight of his calm expression, as if he didn't even take these powerful flying swords seriously. For some reason, a thought suddenly popped up in her mind. From a certain perspective, Lin was quite reliable after unleashing the demonic star flame, and Lin focused his attention on the necklace. Divine Inspection Technique. Sword Burial Necklace. This was an offensive weapon forged with sword-intent stars as its core. It could absorb dead flying swords into the necklace and store energy before releasing them. Dead swords had to have had masters in the past. After the master passed away, the swords lost their spiritual nature and were referred to as dead swords. This, and Lin was astonished. Never would he have thought that this necklace would be a weapon that utilized the power of dead swords. Dead swords were quite rare and were often seen on battlefields, where they were stained by the blood of men and death. However, it just so happened that all of the ancient swords here seemed to be dead swords, and Lin's heart throbbed with pain as he looked at the flying swords being melted by his divine flames. These were all treasures. He immediately canceled the divine flames before refining the necklace and tossing it into the air. "Come on, I'll take as many as you have." He activated the spatial absorption ability of the necklace with all his might. A dark light erupted from the sword burial necklace before forming a blue hole. The entire earth instantly began to tremor. Countless ancient swords rose from the ground. Like a surging river, they swarmed toward the blue hole released by the necklace and disappeared. 10,000, 100,000, a million, 100 million. That's right, all of the flying swords in this world had begun to move. And Lin's excitement was tinged with a hint of concern. Dead swords were so rare, but there were so many of them here. He felt like the mystery was only getting bigger. Tears welled up in Lan Xiaoni's eyes as she stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before her eyes. Even an idiot would know that this treasure that she had stumbled upon was super bad *SS. She had missed such a bad *SS treasure by a hair's breadth. Lan Xiaoni's heart throbbed with pain, but she couldn't do anything about it. And Lin couldn't be bothered with the emotions of a lowly soldier, and he continued to absorb the dead sword. The dead sword would be nurtured within the sword burial necklace, and it would be able to unleash even more power than before. It would also become more powerful as its master's power of the Tao of the sword deepened. It could be said that this was a treasure with a lot of room for growth. However, in terms of value, it crushed the vast majority of immortal tools. He had only just entered the tomb, and he had already stumbled upon such a fantastic treasure. And Lin couldn't help but look forward to what he was going to encounter next.